All right, going to welcome you to the May 15th regular board meeting of the Conejo Recreation and Park District Board of Directors. You please, actually officially call it to order. You please join us as we salute the flag. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We please have the roll call.
Director Nichols,
Yes.
Director Cussworth.
Yes.
Director Huffer,
Yes.
Director Buss,
Yes.
Director Orozco.
Yes.
Thank you. We have some special presentations tonight, and we have some special people here. Thank you for all joining us this evening. We're going to have some employee service awards. And I see Melissa Smith is first up. I was contemplating maybe we should delay this until after we get through the budget, just to make sure we don't want to cloud it or anything. So, but no, who's up first for us tonight? Is General Manager, you taking this?
Come up anytime. You can sit there, I suppose, all over. So Melissa Smith. Melissa Smith, it's hard to believe it's only been 5 years because it really hasn't. So and you're going to hear why. Melissa's been connected to us for much longer than 5 years. So you guys get to see her professionally in the boardroom all the time, but you don't maybe know some of the deeper background stuff. So we're going to share some of that. She's one of 3 kids. She has 2 brothers. She grew up in La Cañada, Flint Ridge. She went to La Cañada High School. She grew up as everyone in La Cañada must do, as an avid surfer. So like she was an avid surfer, but she had to clearly drive a ways to get to the beach, but avid surfer. She ended up getting a bachelor's in poli-sci and American history from UC Davis and overlapped with Andrew, I think, right? At Davis. And she has a minor in music and she can sing opera, which of course now cue the opera singing. And here's how she's been connected with us for so long. So she started at the MRCA right out of college in 2007. So think about that. The person that she was, and I don't actually know exactly what you were doing at the time, but it is an entry level thing, but eventually evolved into being more in finance involved. And that's when Cheryl, her predecessor, kind of started working with her routinely. And long before we actually hired her, Cheryl basically identified her as, this is the person that needs to take my job. She's running circles around me already. And that was years before we actually lured her over here to CRPD. At MRCA, when she started in 2007, she rose up until 2020 when we took her. She had the title of Chief Administrative Officer, Chief of Development Resources, and Deputy Executive Officer of Policy and Legislation. So that was her MRCA job. But just like MRCA and CRPD, she's 50-50 with us. At the time, she was 50-50 with the Conservancy. So she was half MRCA and half Conservancy from January of 2010 to 2020. So 10 years of 50-50 Conservancy MRCA. So at the Conservancy, she actually had the title of Chief Financial Officer, Chief Administrative Officer, and Chief of Policy and Legislation. So she had all these different hats. And if George Lang were here, there'd be hats flying around the room right now. And, the title of her job basically, says she's really in charge of money, but she's basically a problem solver. She, she's in charge of, here at CRPD, We took her in 2020, and I'm going to tell you the date that she started because this is a crack up. So we recruited her to start working for CRPD, and this was years in the making, but we picked a date. You will start on March 17th, 2020. That was her start date. So for those of you that don't remember, Ventura County issued stay-at-home orders starting on March 17th of 2020. So think about that. She's been doing all this budget, finance, IT, and HR, all those things she was doing and kind of had an understanding of how they should go. And then literally when she started, it all changed. It all changed. She had to do everything different. The budgets totally changed during COVID, totally different. You couldn't just rely on what did we do last year, had to be rethought. IT, and Director Nichols Chair Nichols will appreciate this. Like we didn't put our meetings online, and that wasn't a thing. And all of a sudden, the IT folks had to figure out how to put everything online and do these Zoom meetings and communicate remotely, and all that changed overnight. And then HR, all of a sudden you had all these crazy different rules about different kinds of leave and working at home and policies for working at home and all those kinds of things. All that stuff had to be rethought, like literally day one. See, she had to just reinvent the whole job right when she got here, and she did a fantastic job doing that. She is a problem solver. I think first and foremost, that's what you'll hear. Her own staff have said, she is so calm. She is such a reassuring voice. Nothing gets her flustered. And that's what we love about her. She's super she's the adult in the room, a lot of times. So she overcame that. So by the numbers, really quick, because she's a numbers person. She's got 3 cats, 2 brothers. She runs 7 community facilities districts, 2 benefit assessment districts. She manages 3 different lines of credit. There's 10 CRPD employees under management services. There's 10 MRCA employees that work on finance and budget. She has 200 MRCA distinct project account numbers that have percentages of people's time billing to those account numbers and have restricted grant funds that go to those numbers. So to keep all that straight, I mean, it is well, you remember her Death Star presentation, those of you who have been around. So that sums it up pretty well. So she's married to Josh. Great guy. They fell in love. They have a common bond and fandom of the LA Kings, but they have different opinions on baseball. She fortunately is a Dodgers fan. Josh is not. But all those numbers I just threw out, at the end of the day, there's only one Melissa Smith, and we're super grateful for you. Thank you so much. Yeah. Where's Shelly? What do we? Oh, here they are.
We're shaking his hand.
We get to take a little photo. I can hand you Come on, Shelly. We gotta take the photo. Oh, she has it. Is there anything that you have? Thank you. And thank you. So yeah, we didn't talk about it. You're up.
Okay. Hi, thank you. Yeah, I'd worked with Cheryl for 13 years from the MRCA side before I came here. And so she was like prepping me for everything. And she kept talking about MRCA. And I remember going like, Cheryl, I think I got the MRCA side. I'm worried about the CRPD side. You got to tell me. And she was like, oh, after 13 years at MRCA, she just laughed at me and was like, you'll be fine. And she said, the staff are great. Jim's a great boss and the board is super supportive. The hardest thing you're going to do is the budget. But she was saying, then she went and explained, we have a 2-year budget and I'm retiring right in the middle of it. So that'll give you a year at the district to get used to it before you have to do a budget. And then like Jim said, COVID happened and blew up everything. So that wasn't true, but everything else she said was absolutely true. The staff is incredible. great human beings that are absolute professionals that make me look good. So thank you. The three up there that you somehow tolerate my spreadsheets and laugh at my wacky ideas. So thank you, thank you. Jim is a great boss who also tolerates my spreadsheets and sometimes supports my wacky ideas, which is great. And the board, it's so obvious how much you care about the community. So thank you. And you're so supportive of staff and it's not unnoticed. So thank you.
Oh, I was going to say, I think we'll maybe save our board comments until after we hear from everybody. Would that be okay? All right, let's do that. All right, so next we have Emily Vines.
Hello, Emily. You can go up to the podium and I'm going to stay here. That way we can look at you while I read all about you. So Emily is being recognized tonight for 10 years of service to the district. And while most of you may know her from the Goebel Center, Emily got her start with CRPD at the Borchard Community Center in 2009. Needing volunteer hours to fulfill her high school requirement at the time. Emily volunteered in the popular My Time with Miss Tia classes and experience she enjoyed that inspired her to want to pursue an education in child development. After graduation from Westlake High School, Emily was hired as a recreation leader at Borchard in 2011. She quickly made her mark by leading popular programs such as Sculpture and Play, Princess Parties, and Rainbow Club. In 2015, Emily transitioned to the Goebel Adult Center following her mentor and favorite supervisor, Patty Ham. I don't know if Patty wrote this. No, I'm teasing. There's even a smiley face here. Quickly after starting at Goebel, Emily fell in love with the senior population, realizing that she preferred working with seniors rather than the youth. As a recreation leader, she taught social media classes, designed marketing materials, and was the lead for events like the Community Garage Sale, which she just did recently and was very nice, and Holiday Craft Bazaar. In 2022, Emily was promoted to her current position of administrative assistant, where some of her major responsibilities include handling building permits, maintaining the building schedule, creating the monthly gazette, which is very nice and has lots of information in it, and working heavily with the Global Senior Commission. Emily is known for her exceptional organizational skills, leadership among part-time staff, and keen attention to detail. However, where she truly shines is in the compassion, support, and advocacy she offers the senior population. She regularly provides seniors with resource information, contacts service providers on their behalf, and even visits ill patrons in the hospital on her own time, and is always willing to lend a listening ear to those who are lonely. She has a special place in her heart for the homeless seniors and has even been known to bring cat food to help care for the pets of car-bound seniors. Emily says the best part of her job is helping people, and she strives to treat every senior who visits Goebel as she would want someone to treat her own grandmother. Outside of work, Emily loves hiking and discovering new trails, especially in Mammoth. She also enjoys the beach, watching and attending the LA games, and spending time with her fiance, who is here in the audience, who she looks forward to starting a life with and family in the future. I hope he knows family also. Okay, that you want to start a family. That's what it says. Okay, good. Sorry to break it to you. I just want to say, Emily, thank you so very much for all your work over the years, and your passion with the seniors is truly appreciated. So thank you and congratulations on 10 years. All right, and now the next person, Melissa, will you go up to the podium, please? So what I'm going to read now fits on 2 pages, but there's so much more to say about Melissa and what she's done for the district. It just can't fit on 2 pages. And thank you to our marketing department for the lovely slideshow that will be going while I'm speaking, which is way more fun. All right, so let's take a trip down memory lane and talk about Melissa, who is celebrating 25 years with CRPD. Melissa started part-time at Conejo Community Center as a recreation leader and then a recreation specialist. She then moved to a full-time position as the coordinator at the Thousand Oaks Community Center for 9 years. She was then promoted to the supervisor at the Thousand Oaks Community Center, where she spent 10 years before leaving and joining the management team as a service manager, where she's been for 6 years. While at TOC, she created many of our beloved district-wide events, such as Touch a Truck, Haunted Trail, Fishing Frenzy, and Kids Fitness Expo. If you know Melissa, she can create anything out of almost nothing. We still do several of these events today. Melissa was and still is the go-to person for special events. She is full of creativity and has high expectations. When you put that all together, you get significant community events. Melissa is also able to take events to the next level. When she took the lead with the rec band, participation increased significantly due to her working with the team on consistent programming and new creative ideas, including the coloring book and the plush Parker. She also took the lead with our marketing committee, which has helped streamline communication among all of our units over the last year. She has worked with CVUSD to create school recess and lunch programs and partnered with ELOP programs, school breaks, and summer camps for the school district participants. Melissa cares about the programs that we offer and create for our community. She's a hard worker and has a great sense of humor. Staff have said her attention to detail, fun, and creative ideas are the best. Melissa also has a strong work ethic and dedication to CRPD and serving our community. She is generous to her staff and coworkers, whether awesomely celebrating their birthdays or giving her time by attending CRPD programs to support her team. Words to describe Melissa from her staff: Chief of Getting Things Done, operational powerhouse. Melissa was Pinterest before Pinterest existed, and her middle name is Fun. Melissa makes staff feel like family and a part of a team. During the holidays, she's created many fun things like Spirit Week for the whole district, which brought fun for all. Even with all the fun Melissa likes to have, she also keeps our management team on track with strategizing, collaborating, and looking to the future. She is our expert on what has happened in the field, which guides us to what will happen in the future. She's the guru with our registration system and is always looking for improvements. Since Melissa joined the management team, I have seen firsthand her commitment to our organization, the families, and especially the staff. She is a valuable team member. We appreciate her creativity, fun, and work. If you know Melissa, you know that CRPD is a life passion, and the whole family is involved. I just want to do a shout out to John and Pearl for supporting Melissa and all the great things that she does for us. Melissa always says, "I got this," and she always does. So thank you, Melissa, for supporting our team, our community, and CRPD. I greatly appreciate everything.
We are never not surprised at these events. I'm going to start to my right. Director Cusworth, if you would care to say a few words.
Such diversity in our awards with the three of you. So Melissa, of course, I'm always in awe of you because you do something I wouldn't want to do. So I'm glad there are people like you that are out there keeping us on budget and, you know, tackling all of those numbers. So thank you. And I remember talking with Cheryl when your name came up, and she was just like, "Oh yeah, you think Melissa would be good? Mm-hmm. You think she can do the job? Mm-hmm." You know, this is a strong. Mhm. I mean, there was like absolutely, um, you know, no wavering in her opinion of that you could do this job, and we're still in business, so I guess you're doing a good job even through. So thank you so much, Melissa. And with all of the things he said about you, you're thinking like, how old is she? You look pretty young over there. So you've accomplished a lot. Um, so Emily, um, yeah, I think that seniors are really cool. They're interesting. I used to work with a lot of little kids, but seniors are more interesting. They've had lives. So, and I love the senior center. So I'm glad you're over there keeping that senior center going with all of the interesting programs that they have and meeting all of the needs of so many seniors that we have. I met a friend over there the other day. I was dropping off some flyers. I've known her for years, and she was there and she goes, "I've just discovered this place. I need the senior center." She goes, "I brought a friend and you know, we're kind of starting to look at all of these different programs that they have." So you're really making a big difference in our community. I don't think that other communities have something like this. My brother lives in a community which has a country club. It's one of those senior communities. It's really nice. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous, but I don't think they have as much as we do, and ours is free. So, and it serves the entire community. So, really nice. Thank you. Thank you for all the work you do. And then, Melissa, you are fun. Oh, and I wanted to tell you, I like hiking too. So, Melissa, it seems like the rec people have to all be fun. Doesn't it seem like whenever we're coming out here, it's like this is a fun place to be? And that slideshow just exuded fun. And and Melissa is a very fun person, and she does fun things. In fact, in one of the slides, I was glad they kept repeating because at the first one I thought, is that my granddaughter? Yeah, my granddaughter and my grandson were in. We're in two of those, but that just kind of shows. And Pearl is fun. She and my granddaughter became friends at the concert. You know, she has a fun family. So I'm really glad that we have that because when we have things that are just really drawing our community together, you know, they want to come to these sorts of things and they make friends and they make connections. And we need people like you that are going to make a funny face and high five for the photo, you know. That's really fun. So thank you so much for all that you do. And 25 years, I think you don't seem to want to be leaving. So are we going to have like a 40-year, you know, celebration for you someday? Anyway, thanks again.
Director Orozco.
Thank you, Chair. Oh, goodness. I am new to the board, obviously, and so I haven't had a chance to get to know both Emily and Melissa personally. I know I've had a chance to sit down with Melissa many times, and I've had the privilege of getting to know just the work that you provide and the support that you offer the board. And I just want to say thank you so much. You make it so easy and so thoughtful, and I just appreciate the years of service that you've provided, not just to CRPD but to our greater community. And then to Emily and Melissa both, you know, I've said it once and I'll say it again, and I'll continue to say it. CRPD wouldn't be what it is today without our staff, without our wonderful supportive staff, and you guys offer so much with your gifts, and so thank you so much, and I appreciate the work that you're doing and will continue to do, and look forward to working with both of you in the future. So thank you.
Director Buss.
Okay. So Melissa Smith, I have to say, you know, it's not often that you meet people who can understand numbers and make other people understand them as well. Like, it's actually really complex what you do. And then to be able to sell it to all of us and have us understand is huge because you have such different personalities. I love spreadsheets, I'm in them all day long. But Nellie, like, That's not her favorite cup of tea, right? My husband either hates him. That's why he doesn't do our finances. So, but also what I appreciate is that you make the most beautiful PowerPoints of budgets, which is also really impressive because that's really hard to do. So I just have to say, I like that you add as much fun as you can in what you do. So thank you. Um, and then Emily, I have to say, so being a residential real estate agent, we have a lot of seniors who are aging in place. And it is literally, I think, because of the senior center and because of how amazing it is there. And I just love hearing that you went from child development into seniors. And I get it, because it's somewhat similar, but then like you say, they're interesting because they've had these whole lives and then you get to hear these whole stories. So I think that's really cool that you ended up transitioning into that. That's a really fun transition. And I love that you have so much compassion, especially for the unhoused seniors and seniors who are lonely, because that is like one of the reasons that seniors will die sooner is because they're lonely. So I think that's awesome that you take the time to talk to them, and I really appreciate that. And then Melissa, you're like a culture creator within CRPD. I mean, the ability to like make everything fun and the wonderful things that your employees had to say about you, I think is huge. And that's just like speaks volumes of you being here for 25 years and still making it fun and still loving to come to work. I really appreciate people like you making all of us look really good. So thank you for everything you've done for the last 25 years. Thank you.
Director Huffer.
Thank you. First of all, just for the three of you, thank you so much for what you do, not just for the Park District, but for our entire community. Maybe Melissa, not quite so much. You're a little bit more behind the scenes than Melissa or Emily, but the three of you are part of the team that make us on the board look like we know what we're doing, when it's really you folks who are out there day in and day out and making the community so grateful for what the Park District does for our entire community. Only 5 years, somehow, I've been on the board a little longer than that, but somehow the transition from Cheryl to you was totally seamless, despite the fact that you couldn't even be here for the first few months. I'd forgotten March 17th, and who's that lady on the screen again? Oh, okay. But you're a numbers person. I love numbers. You're a spreadsheet person. I love spreadsheets. Not so good at the PowerPoints, but you know, the the details that when we have the committee meetings, I really appreciate. But your ability to I don't want to make numbers understandable to the community, to others who maybe aren't quite so inclined to working with numbers. So I really appreciate what you do for that. I'm sorry. My bad. I shouldn't have done that. But thank you for making the Park District operate. It's mostly behind the scenes, but the numbers, the IT, everything that you do in management services is absolutely critical to keeping our organization going. Emily, thank you for what you do at the Global Center. I happen to have an occasional contact with you and the other folks at the Global Center. I don't want to have any favorites, but it is one of my favorite facilities in the entire Park District. And to echo what's already been said, strangely, I have a few friends who are seniors as well, and they just love hanging out at the Global Center, whether it's for a few hours or a few days. Finally close the doors and not to kick them out, but they love all the programs and most importantly, all the friendship and support that you're giving to all of the seniors in our community. So we really do appreciate that. And Melissa, we have some great programs and great things going on, but the special events that you've dreamed up along the way and supported along the way, some of my personal favorites. I was really disappointed when we had to give up on the fishing frenzy, which I could understand given the water that going through the little creek there was a little worrying when you have little boys crawling into the water and catching the fish with their hands. You know, what might they be catching in that creek? But the fishing frenzy was always a lot of fun. And I just love the Touch a Truck program. You know, organization I belong to, we've been supporting that for a while, but a couple of years ago, my grandkids were visiting from Hawaii. And I didn't think I was going to be able to tear them away from that event. They were having so much fun with that. It was a little disappointing. The helicopter had to leave before they completed the project, but the special events and everything else that you've done for the park district is so greatly appreciated. And to hear you say after 25 years, I'm just getting started, I really look forward to 25 more years. That's absolutely wonderful. So gonna hold you to it, but anyway, thank you very much. And thank you to all three of you for what you do, as I said, for the district and for the community.
Thank you very much. I too have a few things to say. My first thought was, has it already been 5 years for Melissa Smith? I mean, it seems like she just got here. I'm not counting it by the number of budgets that we've gone through. But I do remember when Cheryl was commenting about you coming on. And certainly you have lived up to all that she told us you could do and more. And I still juggling my mind, you know, how do you manage so many multiple accounts in multiple agencies? First of all, it's the state, which is just a pain to begin with. So thank you for keeping that and keeping us in line. But I also thought, you know, I see you occasionally on our legislative committee Zoom meetings, and I know you, I guess, have a little interest in that. So thank you for keeping that in close with you. But I think with our board meetings, it seems like you always are able to anticipate what our questions are going to be. And I don't know if that's because you like hide certain things and you know that there are going to be questions about that or what it is, but thank you for being prepared in that way. But then also with the research that you do on trying to find new opportunities for us, new investment opportunities, new ways to make sure our funds are well managed into the future, long into the future. It's not just, you know, today, but into the distant future. You've really put us in a good position, and I know you're probably going to credit some of your predecessors, but you know, have certainly moved us to another level. And so thank you for doing that. And I'm not going to expect that you're going to do that all the time, but I sure hope so. So keep up that good work. And Emily, nice to hear about your history. I have a couple daughters that also graduated from Westlake High School, one just a couple years before you. And just again, to see how your life has evolved. I know we always think we know what we want to do when we're 18 and we've solved all the world's problems and we're going to go down a certain path, and then life happens and then you realize that road could be a little windy sometimes. But it sounds like you've ended up where you really enjoy it. And I think the rest of us are benefiting as a result of that. So thank you for that. I too have a few senior friends for some reason. They love it at the Global Center. I was there recently with Congress member Brownlee and talking with some of her staff because we're looking at the Gazette. We handed one to her, handed it to the Gazette, and of course, right there in bold red, sold out. I said, oh yeah. I said, you have to know what you want before this thing ever hits the press. And they were amazed at the participation. And I said, well, yeah, it's like we heard it, you got to kick the people out the door. And I know it's because of, you mentioned many of the staff members, and I know there's a lot of passion there, Patty included. But to see you just, you know, contributing to that and hopefully well into the future as well, just gives us hope for how that's going to continue to evolve. And I'm sure you have good ideas we haven't even heard yet. So don't be too quiet, you know, make sure you get those out there. And thank you for entertaining even the cats. So appreciate that. And Melissa, you know, it seems like wherever I go around town, I see you. And it's often at CRPD events that you are either in charge of or actively participating in. But even if you aren't, you're still there at the CRPD events and often with your family. And it's not because you're paid to be there. It's just because that's who you are. You just want to be there and your family likes to be there and you're a family person. And, what was it, a couple of months ago, I was buying cookies from your daughter at Vaughn's, uh, because you're involved in the Scouts. And why is it that the people that don't have any more time to give are still giving more time to other organizations? And that's the type of person that you are, that you just have much more to give. And I'm sure your family knows that that's who you are. I'm sure you don't, ignore them. But, it's just appreciate how you contribute to our district in that way, and your bubbly personality. I don't know if anybody noticed that. Uh, that effervescence kind of flows throughout the district, and I think you've infected many people that way. And so thank you for doing that and continuing to do that. And likewise, don't give up on the ideas. I'm sure there's more there. So, there's I know the COVID scenario kind of put us in a different position, and I think we blossomed from that. So thank you for your contributions and all that. So thank you to all three of you. I was just looking at the number of years that we've got here with the three of you, 40 years combined. So thank you for that contribution. And thank you all to the family and friends and staff that are here supporting. It's always nice to see the group that comes here. It's always a fun group, always a fun night. Are we gonna have a photo opportunity here? Yes. So I think we're gonna have our three honorees come and join the board up here in front. We'll take a photo. Okay, let's pick back up where we left off. Items from the public. I do not have any cards from the public here. Do we have anybody online wishing to address the board? Okay, I see.
Raina?
Okay, Raina, R-A-N-A, if you are online and wish to speak to the board, could you just notify on the Zoom, raise your hand or something? Okay, we have no response, so we're going to move on. Next is approval of the agenda. If we have any adjustments to that, please let us know. If not, a motion to approve. Mr. Huffer,
I'll move approval of the agenda.
okay,
I'll second.
got a motion and a second. And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have an approved agenda. Next is a consent calendar with the minutes, warrants, and a resolution. Anybody have any comments, questions on those items or want to pull one of those items? And if not, a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank-
I'll second that.
Thank you. Got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Do we need to handle the resolution separately, or that's okay as
We've
part of?
done this before. I believe it's okay as is.
It's, yeah, it's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
You can approve a resolution among a group of things on the consent.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So that brings us to item number 7. And it's a public hearing. And Madam Clerk, would you introduce this to us? Fourth,
Sure,
please.
this is item 7, deferred matters. Public hearing preliminary budget fiscal years 2025-26 to 2026-27. The proposed 10-year capital improvement plan, proposed capital improvement budget for fiscal years 2025 to 26 and 2026 to 27.
Thank you very much. And I presume we're going right to Mr. Mooney on this, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. You're up. Let's go for it.
Thank you, Chair Nichols, members of the board. So got a spreadsheet, don't have a fancy PowerPoint, but got a lot of fun projects and planning and good stuff that we're looking forward to reviewing tonight with the board and the public. So tonight we are presenting the proposed 10-year capital improvement plan. So we revisit this every budget cycle. So every 2 years, we revisit this document. It's included in your board packet on pages, just after page, it's starting on page 51. 11 by 17 of everything that's on the screen right now is included in the board packet. So one reason we perform this exercise is to look at funding specifically for Quimby fees and park dedication fees. So we have to document where we are spending those. And so we utilize those for capital improvement as well as land acquisition throughout the district's park system. And then also a reason that we do this is to let the board know what are we working on as well as the public. So just like going through the budget process in general, specifically, we bring these projects to the board tonight. And the intent is to get direction from the board. And then also if members of the public would like to make comments about it, and then we bring this back when we bring the final budget back. So that's scheduled to be on June 19th. Would be when we would revisit any comments, any possible changes, any additions, deletions, all that fun stuff. So just to kind of highlight the process of why we're here tonight with this item. And so to really kind of get an idea of where we're going as a park system, the CIP, the 10-year CIP was developed. And so again, we revisit this every 2 years with the budget. However, when we look at this, it's broken down obviously over 10 years. 1 and 2 are what we are the board would actually be approving and budgeting. Years 3 through 9 are planned and balanced based on estimates of what we would be looking at. And then year 10 is planned. However, you can see not budgeted. So there's a big credit there with millions of dollars that we don't have to do it. And so year 10 is typically a spot where we put a project that, hey, it's a good idea. However, we don't know exactly how we're going to execute it, where it fits into the scheme of the financials of execution to be able to provide it for the community. And then also years ago, we added year X. And so year X is beyond year 10, right? So it's typically replacing our community centers. We also have land acquisition as part of year X. And so really that's how it's broken down. So looking at this document back in 2023, as part of the budget approval, the board approved a 10-year budget, or sorry, a 10-year CIP as part of the budget. And so we revisit this with staff starting in the fall. So we send out the board approved 2023 10-year CIP to staff, and we start kind of like an intake and review process with what we're doing. And so that is parks and planning staff, that's recreation staff. Obviously, I'm working closely with Melissa to make sure that we have the monies and the funding to be able to execute what we're looking at. But we coordinate it and we prioritize these projects. So we prioritize the projects based on preservation of assets, safety, agency compliance, any financial sources, partnerships, creating or enhancing recreational programming, disaster preparedness, enhancing conservation or improving efficiency, as well as workplace health. So those are all kind of the categories that we prioritize based on what we're proposing tonight. So certain projects will get put on the list and they might stay because, again, priorities are higher for other projects. They might stay, excuse me, on the same year over time. However, the intent is they move up based on priority and need and ability to be able to execute. So, and then again, the intent tonight is to review this with you. Just want to remind you again, years 1 and 2, that's what we would be proposing for the board to actually approve and designate funds for. And years 3 through 10 and beyond it's a planning exercise. So it's information only, it's a planning exercise, but the intent is that way we're forecasting and looking ahead to what we would be executing throughout the community. So jumping in, looking at fiscal year 25-26, so that would be year 1 in the plan. We have 31 total projects. However, we have 8 carryover projects. So Katie, if you can just kind of scroll a little bit. Basically projects 1 through 8 on this list is a carryover from the prior budget approval in the prior year. And so we're not there yet to finish these. So we're carrying them over to the next fiscal year because we got to account for the monies and all that. So a big chunk of the money in year 1 is actually in those carryovers. A month or so ago, board approved a $4.5 million project for the skate park, right? So that is a big chunk of what year 1 is. However, we do have outside of those, we have 26 other projects. And so you could see those other new projects that are new for that year, as well as we have our 5 annual projects. So that's a recurring annual project that's part of capital that's at the top of that spreadsheet. So from a money standpoint, the 11 largest projects that are new, not including the carryovers, is about $1.1 million, right? So we have a handful of projects. However, from a monetary standpoint, they're not as much as what's already been approved and that's being carried over from last fiscal year. And so that makes up about 13% of what the budget would be for this year 1, right? And so we have a range. We also have a to be determined number, right? So instead of putting 0, but to be determined, and that is project 1.09. And that is the conversation of where is Hillcrest Center for the Arts going to be? Where is the administrative office is going to be? Is it going to be here? Is it going to be at another location? Are we going to be at 2 different locations? All that type of stuff. So we wanted to, that was a comment from last budget cycle that we should be documenting that and taking a look at it. So we wanted to make sure to put that at a high priority because We want to make sure the arts has a place to be, as well as the administrative offices have a place to be. So, and it's unknown. So that's why we have the to be determined number on there. However, we also don't know is it land purchase? Is it rental? Is it just tenant improvements, right? So again, that's a pretty ambiguous project, and in the coming months, hopefully in the coming year, we shore that up and figure that out. We would return to the board if we need additional funding to execute that specific project. However, we do have 10 other projects that we have designated funds for. So kind of starting from the top, working down, we have the community pool at CLU. We have a shade structure for a quarter million, $250,000. At Conejo Creek South, we have the renovate irrigation system at the north area for $210,000. And then continuing to Thousand Oaks Community Park, we actually have the center, the upper roof needs to be replaced. So we have 150,000 estimated for that project, as well as we have our annual funds of our trail and fence construction and open space, as well as our annual grant CIP funds. So we have those, and those are obviously open space and district-wide there. And then we have another annual fund for our play area equipment and surfacing district-wide. And then we kind of get into a little bit smaller capital projects where we have some parking lot resurfacing, so that Dos Vientos, as well as Oak Brook Regional Park at the Chumash Museum, doing some repairs on the parking lots there. And then some district-wide LED lighting retrofits, so taking a look at some of the fixtures in our centers, because we do have an aging park system. Those fixtures aren't even available anymore. So we're looking at swapping those out. It's going to create efficiencies, but then also eventually we're not going to be able to turn the light on because the bulb isn't able to be replaced because that fixture doesn't exist anymore. And so again, just kind of keeping up with the times and again, efficiencies and keeping things operational and working are a high priority. And then if we can add additional opportunities such as shade or such as fixing the irrigation system at Conejo Creek South, so we have green grass for the soccer fields, all that good stuff. And then the remaining so we have about 1.1 million. The remaining accounts for about 7.7 million, and that's over a 20 projects. But again, a large portion of that is the carryovers from the prior year. And then another item that we review as part of this process is where are we doing the work and where are we spending the money for the work, right? So we do have 6 planning zones. We have a district-wide as well as open space. And so for the proposed CIP for year 1 hits every single zone, as well as open space and district-wide. So we hit all those marks, those 8 marks of where we're spending the money. We're there. And so the biggest outlier, they range from 69,000 all the way up to 4.5 million. The biggest outlier is Zone 5, and that's because that's the skate park project, right? So you kind of see that blip jumping off the page a bit on that chart, and that's the reason why. And then moving on to year 2 of the CIP, we're looking at 15 projects, and this is assuming that I, as well as my staff, do our jobs and get everything done, that we don't have any carryovers. However, that's not how construction works. That's not how planning works. So this is assuming that everything in year 1 gets completed, and then we move on to year 2, which it would be 15 projects, and that's at a cost of just below 1.7 million between those 15 projects. However, the 7 largest projects are about just over $1.3 million. And so that's about 79% of the budget right there in those 7 projects. And so those 7 projects, being the most expensive estimate would be Conejo Creek North, and that's replacing the Willow Bend restroom, as well as improving access there. That one's kind of unique. Again, it's district-wide park. However, we do have some grading. It was built early 90s before ADA, and so we're trying to improve it so we have better access for all folks that are using the park, as well as the building is kind of at a low point. That restroom's kind of at a low point, so you got water buildup. The building's kind of right through the drainage way a little bit, so we're going to be raising that building up a bit. Creating a better access with possibly a renovated bridge as well as access through the parking lot and the driveway aisle there, right? So again, efficiencies, but kind of bringing it up to today's standards, but then also making it more accessible, right? And that's not just to meet current code. Typically, we always exceed code, but then making it work for the public that's using the facility, right? And then continuing on, Conejo Community Park and Center, in a carryover project is phase 1 in year 1. Well, we have phase 2 in year 2. And so as part of the report, I didn't go into major detail, but on the spreadsheet, under the description column, specifically, we're looking at the stage area. So we're looking at putting the permanent stage in. There would be landscaping involved with that, electrical, as well as some walkways to be able to kind of be able to provide that permanent stage in that area. And that's at $250,000. And then you see Conejo Creek South again. We're looking at renovating the other area within the park. And then we do have our annual trail and fence construction and open space. We do have our annual CIP funds, and we have our annual enhanced play area equipment surfacing. And then we also at Borchard Community Park have lighting improvements at Field 4. Just like at Skate Park, Rancho Potrero, the Teen Center, we always take a look at the latest technology. So we've kind of reviewed all of our fields. We would love to change over all of our fields. However, we do feel that we can create efficiencies better at that park site for better coverage, more playability, and all that. So that's why that project is listed on there. And then again, we review where are we spending the money, looking through our 6 planning zones, looking through open space and district-wide. And so again, we hit every single planning zone. It ranges from 45,000 in zone 1 all the way up to 600,000 in zone 2. So there is a range there with the costs that we're spending. But again, it's based on prioritized projects and what needs to be accomplished in year 2. And then I'm not going to go through every project, year 3 through 9, or 10 in year X. But however, what we would be looking at, so just because a project is year 3, doesn't necessarily next budget cycle that becomes year 1. We still reassess. There's new priorities, possibly new issues or things that arise, or new opportunities, right? A grant might move something that was year 9 all the way up to year 1, depending, right? And so what we would do is take a look at the plan again, just like we did this past fall. After the next budget cycle, we would take a look at year 3, and that would kind of be our starting point, and then possibly building it up into year 1, year 2, and so on. And then so you'll see as part of your report, there is notations on, and this is on page 44, starting on page 44, is there's orange highlights, right? So what does a highlight mean? That means it's unfunded. So looking at the spreadsheet, we do try to balance it based on monies. However, we do have some pretty big projects and aspirations to get a lot of work done, and in year 3 as well as year 4. But I'll talk about funding here in a minute, but we need additional funding, and that typically comes from park development fees. And so there are some projects in the works that may be able to fund these projects, but starting with Conejo Community Park Center improvements phase 3, that would be the main building, the parking lots, and finishing off. But that's not to say, because last time I said phase 2 was going to be the building. Well, we didn't hit a grant, we didn't get additional money, so now we've kind of kept that in year 3, right? And so year 3 ranges from a $200,000 project all the way down to a $100,000 project. Again, we got improvements at Conejo Creek North. That includes walkways, possible parking improvements, as well as working on the pond and updating some of the filter systems and the pumps and things like that at Conejo Creek North. We do have pickleball courts on there, so that has been an unfunded project on the CIP now for 2 cycles at least. Currently, the only contemplated exact location would be Del Prado Playfield was on the list, and that was per the ad hoc committee and reviewing that through some public meetings that we did and some outreach, as well as a possible alternate location. We don't know what that location might be, but again, things change in the coming years, and we might be able to find another location for that. as well as we have Rolling Oaks Neighborhood Park design, Lynn Oaks Neighborhood Park expansion design. So we have those set aside. However, we feel that it would be best for park development fees to be able to supplement those parks from a funding standpoint. And so that's why those have been kind of set aside. We want to keep thinking about them. We want to keep them up on the list because we look at that as a good opportunity. But however, from a financial side, we don't have the money to move those projects forward. We have other priorities that need to be moved forward in the capital plan. And then continuing to year 4, it would be the development of those. So development of Lynn Oaks, development of Rolling Oaks. And then we have a couple other in year 4 with, Conejo Creek North adding an additional picnic area. And then we also have our annual grant again. That's on every year. But then we have new rehab basketball court at Triunfo Community Park. And then kind of going down the list, year 5, we have some parking lot improvements. We have some landscaping improvements at a couple parks, some walking paths, as well as, again, the annual grant CIP funds. Moving on to year 6, we have, tennis court parking lot and restroom at Wildflower Playfield. We have a handful of play area renovations, Orchard Community Park, Cypress Neighborhood Park, Even Star, North Ranch Neighborhood. And then we also have an additional reservable picnic area at a district-wide park location. So kind of taking a look at that. Continuing to year 7, we have a couple play area renovations, Stagecoach Inn, as well as Sunset Hills Neighborhood Park, shade structures at Sapwe Trails Community Park, walking path at Dos Vientos Neighborhood Park. And these projects have been on this list, but they were most likely in year 8 or year 9 from prior years. So again, as more work gets done and more funding's available, then these projects move up, right? And then we also, moving on to year 8, 2 cycles ago, we added a new play area at Conejo Creek South Park, right? So it's a district-wide park. We know there's a range of age of kids at that park, whether they're watching their siblings game or they're not. And so we added that. And so that moved up to year 8 in this cycle, as well as we have a walking path at Rancho Conejo Playfield, and then some fencing at Dos Vientos Community Park. And then continuing to year 9, we have some fencing at Thousand Oaks Community Park. And then I want to highlight the multi-purpose gathering areas with possible amphitheater at Sapwe Trails or various locations. And so that's a project that we feel that we could have some kind of multi-use space where it could be gathering informally. It could be programming for Rochelle's folks to do fitness classes or yoga, or working with contractors to do some fun stuff for the community. So just trying to do kind of like an outdoor classroom, if you will. So trying to have some cool space, but then also being able to work in, if you've never been to the upper terrace of Sapwe Trails, beautiful view looking across the whole park district, right? And you see all the highlights of open space through there too. And then continuing for year 9, renovating the ball field at Waverly, doing some irrigation upgrades at Conejo Creek West Equestrian Park, a shade structure at Rancho Conejo Playfield. And so those are projects that, again, staff as well as members of the public have come to us and said, hey, we think this might be a good idea. It might be a good fit. And so staff has kind of set it on our schedule. And then again, in time, these will kind of build up and move to the top of the list as needed, right? And then year 10 is kind of the fun year. It's there's some really new I would say not new. Some of the stuff has been on there, but it's new ideas, interesting ideas. And so new to year 10 this year is Aquatic Center with a spray ground. So that's a coined term by a park professional, spray ground, but location to be determined, right? But again, and it was I've been talking with Melissa, and Melissa's in charge of the pool now. And so it's Dee actually put this on her list of aquatic center, right? So it's kind of thinking, hey, it would be great to offer a new pool at another location, but then also it could have a spray ground for the people that want to bring their family to the spray ground. And then also we had a lot of these have been on the list for a while, again, because it's an idea. Funding is tough, right? So it's an idea. That's why we want to put it on the list. However, some of these stay in year 10, right? So development at Conejo Creek Northwest, that would be a funding item, right? So as we kind of work through the master plan in the coming year, we'll have a little bit better idea. Maybe we get a little bit more funding, and that one moves up, right, in time. We have Musco lighting retrofit district wide. So I mentioned looking at certain properties, we have either new or we've upgraded to LED. We're working with Musco on those, and we constantly check in with them when it makes sense, when it pencils out. And so when that time comes, we'll be taking a look at what it would what it would take to phase out the old fixtures to the new LED. And again, that's probably going to be multiple years phasing, probably not all at once because it's going to be a significant cost at one time. And then we also have some additional pickleball courts at Rancho Conejo Playfield. And then we have a couple other, dog park number 2, West Development, skate park number 2, East Development, sand volleyball complex district wide, reclaimed. We keep this on the list, but convert to reclaimed irrigation at North Ranch Playfield. That's one of the items that technology's changed, right? So this one's been on the list for a while. However, our water providers are moving away from reclaimed water because they're looking at newer technologies, right? So there's different water programs that they're using recycled water, so they don't have to do reclaimed water. So it's a different classification of water, right? And then we also have some site improvements at Fiore Playfield. We got fitness and shade at Oakbrook Neighborhood Park. And then again, the annual funds district-wide. And then year X, again, it's pointing to the cost of our infrastructure, like our community centers, to replace those. So at one point, Conejo Community, before we did our assessment project, it was on year X. And then we did the assessment project, and then now we've been phasing the work, right, to address the deficiencies or improvements needed to make the park work for what we're using the park for and what the community's using the parks for, right? And so with most of our facilities approaching 50 years old, we really definitely need to take a look at the roofs, the structures, the lighting, the sewer, the water, sometimes not the sexy stuff, right? The stuff behind the walls in the ground that's supporting the building, right? All the infrastructure. And so year X was placed in a few cycles ago, I think at least three budget cycles ago. And so we've actually updated the numbers to this. So we assumed a 15% increase from our prior CIP plan. And so if you're comparing our last CIP to this, there was a slight increase to these numbers, but it's Orchard Community Park, Thousand Oaks, Old Meadows, Crawley House, which would be more of a rehabilitation of it, possibly, a therapeutic unit facility, and then Dos Vientos, and then possibly replacing the pool someday at CLU, right? So again, this is a planning document. It's information only. So we update it every 2 years to make sure that we're keeping tabs on our facilities, we're keeping tabs with the public, and talking to our counterparts in rec to make sure we're providing these facilities for what we need to use it for, right? And then we also have, and I'm looking at page 46 in the report, but at the very bottom, this is something we added, I think it was last cycle or before. It was land acquisition development for future park sites. And that was just a to be determined number, because it could be $1 million, or it could be $10 million, or it could be $50 million, right? So huge range of what it could be. But just those 11 projects, including the assessments, it would be about $61 million, right? And again, this is all in today's dollars, so we're just kind of planning in the moment. Things obviously will change in the future. I wish things would get cheaper, but unfortunately they continue to go up, but also plans change, right? So we'll have to kind of adjust our plan and see what we're doing in the future, right? And then so I wanted to highlight, so great projects, great input from staff, collaboration with the public and the user groups that we're working with on the parks. But how do we pay for this, right? So because that's a big part of this equation, right? How do we pay for this? So we do get Quimby fees. On page 47 actually shows, and it's the big change from prior years, because of the density factor of housing that's happening in town, right? So typically it was, anywhere from $500,000 to a couple $100,000 a year, right? And leading up to this year, it was, 275,000, about 124, 137. Well, year to date in 24-25, we've received $3.1 million in Quimby fees. So pretty significant. Myself and my staff, as well as Jim, works with developers. We work with city staff. We know there's a handful of projects out there that could be in the tens of millions of dollars, depending on when they pull permits and move forward with the multifamily that's coming in on board based on the update to the city general plan. But that is a huge factor of being able to, one, put the parks where the people need them, right? And so that's a factor in this plan as well as our master plan, right? Taking a look at that and using those two documents to help guide us and make decisions. But then it's also the factor of kind of like forecasting as best we can, right? So if we know a project like Page Lane, for instance, we knew there was some housing coming on board. And so we started designing and developing and getting it ready, shelf ready, right? And so the intent would be to get some of these bigger projects on board and to get shelf ready. And these Quimby fees would be a huge part of that, to be able to do that. And then kind of working through all the different funding sources is grants. We do have a pretty good success rate. We have some good partners throughout the state as well as locally in the city and the county. And with Metropolitan Water with rebates and other grant opportunities and local water districts. And so we do have some good grant opportunities. We do face a little bit of hurdles. We are a little bit more affluent community than others, and we're well funded and very well managed with our funds with my counterpart. And so that's where it's, because we are doing a good job, sometimes it's that balance, and we're not necessarily the first person on someone's list, right? But we'll continue to seek grants and look at that. And then, as you all are aware, we do have a couple assessment districts. So we have our district-wide assessment. So that helps fund quite a bit of our capital program to be able to make this work. First column on your spreadsheet next to the total budget is from Fund 62. And so a lot of the projects are being paid out of that fund. However, over time, that's changed a bit, right? So looking back at fiscal year 07-08, approximately 60% was used for capital and about 40% was used for operational. So like maintenance and services, right? And so to be able to maintain the park system. And so now we're really closer to that 50-50 number with that. And so it's in my time and working through with the CIP, that continues to kind of tick down a bit. So, which means there's less funds to be able to use for capital, which means we need to look at other sources to be able to build the capital that we need for the community, right? And then we also have the two landscape maintenance districts with Rancho Conejo and Dos Vientos. However, again, same conversation. Those really support a lot of our maintenance operations. We do have a small program for capital in both of those to set monies aside. However, it doesn't work like the district wide, just because it's a larger assessment, more fees, and obviously more flexible to spend money throughout the district. And then, as I mentioned with grants, we do have partners and other agreements throughout the community, right? So the City of Thousand Oaks, great partner. You know, we're standing in their building, doing our work every day. Rochelle's folks are programming in their buildings. We're working with them on with Costco properties and operational with Costco as well. But then also just from a capital standpoint, they've been a great partner. They've put money towards Sapwe Trails Community Park, Page Lane Neighborhood Park, all the work that we did at Goebel and the Adult Center a few years back. That was very heavily funded through the city. So really good partner. And then we also have community-based nonprofit groups that are a great partner for us. And so next board meeting, I'll be bringing in our CIP grant program for the board to take a look at. But we have great partners, whether it's Conejo Valley Little League, Conejo Valley Botanic Garden, Newbury Park Pony Baseball, the Community Garden, Corba, some of our new folks, Corba, Concerned Off-Road Bicycle Association at Sapwe, our disc golf group, really great partners through all of our facilities. And so it's over the past over the past decade, also with AYSO, Region 9 has been a great partner too. So they've been able to put substantial funding to help their mission, but also which aligns with our mission to be able to provide the park spaces that we have. So that's in summary. I know you guys are going to have questions. Obviously, a lot of data, a lot of information, but staff is really excited to provide this plan. Again, it's been a multi-month process working with the supervisors, working with the finance staff to make this document happen. Excuse me, and to be able to present it to you. So with that, I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Director Mooney. It wasn't a PowerPoint, but you had a lot of information, and of course, you get the great spreadsheets. So thank you for
That was
that.
only 35 minutes. Too,
Yeah,
so.
no, that's fine. It's a lot of information. I mean, you got to cover 10 years plus, so it's okay. So I guess I'm going to start to my left with Director Huffer.
Okay, so some of these questions are going to be out of order. I've gone through and made notes, well, not necessarily in a perfectly logical order, but the bottom line to start with, from years 3 on, a lot of this is pie in the sky. And a lot of this means we need to continue and work harder at identifying funding sources, because the Quimby fees and some grants and other things aren't going to get us any of these orange projects or any of these year X projects or year 10 projects. So the funding to make any of these things happen is something that is critical to going forward on all of this. I did appreciate the explanation of the orange items in year 3. I was guessing that's what it was. So if we don't find the funding, then there'll be something else to replace those in year 3 and year 4. I was struck that historically we typically have 2 or 3 play areas that are refurbished, but I'm assuming that because of the big chunk of money we got a couple of years ago, and we were able to do, I believe, 8 playgrounds in 1 year, that a lot of that has been pushed out, and we don't really need to do too many playground refurbs until starting in year 6.
Correct. Yeah, that's and really it's like we have like a chapter of CIP that it's like a heat map of, hey, whether it's parking lots, shade structures, and playgrounds. And so because we were fortunate to get some outside funding, we moved ahead a few years. And so like last cycle we didn't have many playgrounds. This cycle we didn't have many playgrounds. So yeah, that is accurate.
Okay. And on your detailed spreadsheets, I know it's been explained before, but I've forgotten, there's a column labeled Fund 13. That sounds almost like Area 13 or something, but what is Fund 13?
Yeah, so I will do the layman version, and I'll do it wrong, and then Melissa will probably correct me. But basically, that's the capital fund. So that is kind of the extra fund that we can dip into to be able to help pay for projects. So and that's something I kind of breezed over, but from in past years we've dipped into that occasionally on some of these bigger projects. However, again, priority, there's a reason what project 109 is at the top of the list, is because we need to find a home for the arts and we need to find a home for administration. And so we've purposely stayed away from that fund to allow ability and flexibility to make future decisions for us. So
Okay. And I certainly understand that any years after year 1 that it would be pretty wild projections, but the PDF areas in zones, the various zones, even for year 1, you don't feel comfortable making any projections as to the fees, park development fees that might be anticipated in year one?
So we do have projections. This is based on what we know available fund balance at the beginning of the fiscal year. So again, we wanted to get this as accurate as possible, and it is conservative. However, we do know, like, I can't remember what board meeting it was when we were talking about legislation and the Quimby and park dedication fee conversation. We know, I think it's about $10 million we have that's possibly moving forward. So it's entitled projects that have been approved. However, we don't know if that's going to come tomorrow or going to come 5 years from now, depending on when the developer chooses to develop it. And a lot of the times the developers get entitlements and then they sell it. So they go through all the process and get it all ready to go, and then they sell it. So it just depends on that kind of process. But this is based on the beginning of the fiscal year, year one. And so that is what this plan is based off of. Because if from a projection standpoint, we can make kind of guesses, like that's why we started putting projects in year 3 as unfunded, because we hope in 2 years from now we do have funding to be able to execute those. But we just don't know until the developer does what they do.
Okay, and if and when those fees do actually happen, would it mean that, and I can't quite tell from the map that you were kind enough to send out to us, but if most of those fees were coming into, and I don't know if it's zone 4 or zone 1, I think it's zone 4 would be mostly along the Teal Boulevard where a lot of the development is going.
Correct, yeah.
If those fees came in mainly to zone 4, would we then be juggling some of the projects even in year 1 and year 2?
We possibly could move up projects if we got funding in certain zones as needed, right? If the projects were designed and ready to go, right? But we do have a range. So we, like, one of those projects is the 500 Teal Boulevard project, and that's in zone 4. Holding Camp and Teal Boulevard, the pumpkin patch and tree lot. And so that is in zone 4. We have the old Kmart site off of Hampshire, that's in zone 1. And then we also have the old Amgen Visitor Center, and that's in zone 5. And so we do have a range of entitled projects, and we don't have the money yet, but we do have entitled projects kind of spread out through the district. We are seeing a trend that there's interest, just like our neighbors at the Jan's Mall, to develop possibly for multifamily. And so that's in zone 4, as well as there's properties off of Hillcrest too, that's in zone 4 as well. So we definitely could see additional along the boulevard, but it kind of stretches through town too.
Okay. Again, not a particular logical order, but I know these are all future projects not budgeted, but year 3, you mentioned pickleball courts possibly at Del Prado Playfield. And then in year 10 and beyond, you mentioned pickleball courts possibly at Rancho Conejo. I know when we were initially going through the process of looking at areas, both of those were a little further down the list, but, depending on any other possible sites, there seemed to be a limited number. Is there any reason that, and again, these are, nothing locked in, but any reason you chose Del Prado in year 3 versus Rancho Conejo in year 3?
Yeah. So those were based on what the board prioritized last budget cycle. So I believe year 3 last cycle had Del Prado, Oak Brook, and Triumpho as 3 properties to us to further assess. But again, year 3 is not the board approving projects there to move forward. It's just a planning exercise, and staff went through the process. We did outreach last summer, or maybe probably before then. I think it was like early 2024. We did outreach, and so then we took those off the list. We took Oak Brook off the list. We took Triumpho. Del Prado was the last site standing in that year 3 slot, so we took those off, and then we just put in the alternate location because there might be another opportunity kind of coming up that's more suitable. Rancho was low on the priority list, and that's why it's far back in the CIP. And that was similar to last cycle. 1, from a funding standpoint. 2, we already got courts there. 3, if you remember from the staff report and presentation. It was mixed review from our neighbors and park users to put them there. Pickle people were like, yes, give us more courts. And the neighbors were, we got enough stuff going on at the park. So it was definitely that balance of it. So, and we feel, again, this is part of the pickleball assessment, like a separate project in itself. Rancho was the very possibility, however, very low because of the temperature, but then also because of the cost. We would have to expand parking. There's no on-street parking there. There's limited ability to be able to, we would have to take away some grass, all that type of stuff. So it was a balance of that effort. So that's why it's way back on the list.
Okay. In a different topic, and I would try not to totally dominate, but I get to a number of play fields around the community. Board shared mostly baseball fields, but there is a little area that soccer can be played. They've got a nice playground there for the family members who are not playing baseball or soccer. Pepper Tree has a nice playground area between the soccer fields there. Dos Vientos, we just opened a couple of years ago, a really nice playground there, close to the ball fields and the soccer fields. There might be one or two other ball field and play field areas, but way out in year 8, you have new play area, Conejo Creek South. If an organization such as AYSO was able to provide certainly not the entire $1 million, but significant funding toward that project, would it be possible to bump that project up much closer to year 3 or year 4 as opposed to year 8 where it is right now? Because with several thousand kids out there playing and thousands of families out there with little kids who aren't playing, to have a playground there, I think would be really appreciated.
Yep. Yeah. And of course, yep. Of course, that was added to our plan. I had meetings with Dana before she retired with AYSO. I've had meetings after Dana retired, and there's interest there, but again, it's money, right? So this was added in year 10 last year. It was just an idea, and hey, this could be a good idea for the community. And then, hey, still think it's a good idea. It moved up. It worked out from a budget standpoint to year 8. I could see it continuing to kind of move up the list because of the impact it would have on the community and the benefit it would have. So, and yeah, we welcome that partnership for sure.
Okay, I think that'd be a useful conversation to have between the Park District and the folks at AYSO. I happen to be familiar with their balance sheet, and they do have some funds available, and they're looking for things, so.
Maybe registration should go down a little bit.
Registration hasn't changed in 8 years. Only organization in the community that hasn't upped their player fees, so. But that's a whole different topic. And then the only thing, sorry, I can't remember if it was year 10 or year X, but some years ago, Tom had, and I can't even remember the figure, it was a rather ludicrous figure, but artificial turf for various sports fields out there, and that sort of disappeared off of the wish list.
Yeah, I want to say that I can't remember that ever being on the list while I've been looking.
It was before your
time.
time.
So. Looking or working on the CIP, but yeah, for the past decade plus, that hasn't been contemplated for a long time. So.
Okay, thank you.
Director Buss.
Well, speaking about the AYSO fields and the playground, does it really have to be $1 million?
Dos Vientos playground was about 900,000 and change when we removed an existing playground and expanded it a little bit and then added features back. So yeah, that's.
Oh, so it would be like that big. Okay.
Yeah, if not bigger, because it's a district-wide park.
Oh,
so
okay.
because like Director Huffer was saying, thousands of folks are there. So yeah.
Okay, so you asked the questions I was going to ask about pickleball, and because I remember the first go round for the budget when a couple of years ago, there was quite a few pickleball players here, and I was curious if they have just dissipated in interest due to other facilities being open, or are we still getting a high level of demand wanted
So
for the pickleball players? Because
Yeah, so we get interest all the time from all sports groups, and we get ideas all the time from all kinds of different activities. Pickleball is still an interest of the community. We've had multiple meetings on opportunities to work with them, and yeah,
But even like recently, because I mean, they were just very
within
vocal last time.
I would say like in the fall was probably the last time I interacted
Oh, okay.
with them directly, but I know sports staff works with them, and my field staff talks with them on a routine basis.
Okay, so they
but-
are still.
But we
like,
do
super-
see like Westlake got 4 courts, Camarillo's working on their courts. We've seen other people going elsewhere, but that's not to say that people aren't playing here. So,
Right, and I think Newbury Park is opening like a private space.
yeah,
or did
and then the
open.
private sector too. Yeah.
Okay. And then I was curious, I don't know if you know this, and it's totally fine if you don't off the top of your head. I don't really actually expect you to, but so I was surprised to hear that Kmart's fees are not in because I thought that they, since they had started the demo and all that, that they would have had to have paid, but
Building permit.
oh, okay, so they were able to just get their demo permit and
Yeah.
then that, okay. So, because that's why I thought, oh, that's why you're at 3.1 million. Do you have any idea how many units this is? Just
I'm sorry, how
roughly.
many units? What is?
that you guys have gotten paid year to date that has created the 3.1.
The big one was 218 units at the Timber School property. So it's hotel and multifamily. So there's 218 units that they paid on, and top of my head, a couple $1 million was
Oh,
that.
okay.
Plus, like you noticed, there are ADUs processing those, and then
Yeah.
we have had a couple I don't say custom homes, but one-off homes that have come in to develop.
Okay, so
throughout town.
so then basically, like the majority of this was the 218
Mhm.
units. That's what I was curious on, like how much of that came through. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think you went over everything and explained it really well. Of course, I agree with you. Funding is definitely going to be an issue sooner than later as the buildings are aging, and we'll have to explore the other opportunities. But other than that, I don't really have any other questions. You went over everything, so thank you so much.
Director Orozco.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, a lot of great questions have already been asked. I do have a couple. I think the big one for me is the impact for year one on 1-9 for the Hillcrest and for the arts, our CRPD admin building, and just the impact on I know that we're looking at different possibilities in the event that we do move forward with pursuing, acquiring and spending, a large sum of our money, or I guess my question really stems from like, what is the impact? Should we have to move or buy our current building, what have you, on year one and then subsequent years? Would we have to completely reassess, um, you know, what that looks like?
Yeah, so lots of variables in place, right? Since
Yeah.
we don't have the answer. However, as I mentioned, we didn't dip into that Fund 13. We did on a couple projects that were necessary. However, we wanted to leave those funds available for that. And then from most of this is funded through our district-wide assessment, so
Mhm.
that's an annual assessment.
Yeah.
And so we feel confident that we wouldn't need to change this plan. However, with the caveat of Project 1.09, right? So we
Right.
would have to take a look at that, but we would be most likely using additional funding sources to be able to accomplish that. So
Got it.
just because of the value and costs associated with possible land acquisition or a major renovation of an existing building, that type of stuff.
Okay. Great. Thank you for that. And really, I think, just looking at all of the different years, I was very excited to see some items like the walk path around Portrait Community Center. I know I've like spoken privately about that to some of you, as well as I know you and I had a meeting with pickleball members of the community who were curious and excited about a walkway. So I saw that in year 9. So yeah, thank you for just it seems like a lot of really thoughtful work that went into this 10-year plan.
Thank you.
Director Cuthbert.
Well, wow, you got a lot of things going on. My husband and I said we were gonna remodel the laundry room in June, and I said to him the other day, it's gonna be June. And he was like, oh yeah. He said, how about August? Maybe August. And then I sort of wondered, like, do you have a 10-year plan for your house? Does your wife say, we need a new swing set? And you say, well, I have that in year 2. Well, what about some fruit trees? Oh, that's in year 3. Or do you just say, or is it like the cobbler's children have no shoes? If you're just like, no, I'm doing projects all day. I'm not going to do any projects around here. This is.
You've been married for a while. You keep some things in your brain. So, yeah. I do not have a 10-year CIP.
No, I was joking. But, no, this is very impressive. I've always been highly impressed at how well we track things and the budgeting and our capital funds and how we, being here for a few years now, how some things happen, some things can't. We can look around. So I think it's very impressive. I do have one question though. On page 46 for the Crowley House, where it says rehabilitate existing building, we have $1,150,000. Is that a solid estimate or is that an estimation?
Simply just an estimation.
So is there any plans to get a solid estimate on that?
So currently we do have a project in play at Crawley. We're looking at structural enhancements there. And so we're in the process of securing a building permit for that work. And so this would be more of a conversation of moving forward. That building has been used as a sports office. It's been used as a therapeutic kind of overflow classroom site, right? And skill center for their programming. And so it's more a conversation of what are we going to use it for? What value does it give to the community? Because it could be just giving it a really good facelift and making improvements to meet current code and proper activities for recreation to utilize. Or it could be a totally, I don't want to say rebuild, but it could be a total rebuild that could be $10 million, but we wouldn't know, and we don't necessarily want to project that cost on it versus, hey, we feel that we can do a rehabilitation and not just, throw a coat of paint on, but really take a look at the whole building for that $1 million. So that would be more of a future conversation. But again, that's year X. So that's way back in the kind of like priority, but we want to make sure that we're taking a look at it and planning for the possibility of it. So it's been contemplated. So.
Yeah, I guess year X seems really far away to me. Like if it could just be somewhat made inhabitable, that might be something. And what estimate would it be to just make the building inhabitable and not the ideal situation of what you want to use it for? So I guess that would be my question, is if there could be an estimation on making it inhabitable. And you moved your microphone down. Were you going to address that?
Well, I was just gonna say, I think there's two things, right? There's the $1 million to kind of like year X, kind of like, we know we're gonna have to put some big money into this to kind of keep it really going. But the more immediate effort has been to just identify with the city and the building official, you saw the condition of the floor and the bowing, and is that structurally, make the whole building suspect? And if it is, what do we have to do to fix it? We don't know what that number is, but if it really isn't, and maybe there's something a lot less expensive that we can obviously get back in the building, doing something not so expensive sooner, that's what we would do. So so in other words, there's really, think of it as two things. The $1 million year X is kind of like the real big refurbishment of the whole building because it's old. There's an effort to just more immediately see what do we need to do to get back in the building, and those are separate things.
No, I understand that. I was just saying maybe what do we need to get back in the building could be done, or can we ever get back in the building? I'd just like to see something happen to have someone look at that building and say, can we even save it? If not, what do we do with it? Or yes, you can save it and it would be, completely habitable and it would only cost this much.
I mean,
So,
to be totally like candid. The holdup right now is a little bit on the purpose of the house and what it was built for versus what we've been using it for, and there are questions about whether the use that it's been used for, whether it meets the city standards for that. In other words, it was built as a house. We're using it as kind of a mini center. And they look at that as potentially different occupancy types. And if they were to say, yeah, if you're going to have 20 people in here for some sort of function, class or whatever, can you do that in this old house or not? And we're trying to get them to say yes.
Yeah.
But they
I
may
just,
not.
it would be interesting to see what Timber School did because that was used as a school. And then it was used as a school administration building and now they've completely gutted the inside and they're going to be using it as a apartment building office. But the building has maintained its outside structure. So I don't know that if you have to always be looking as what was it used for if you are repurposing a building. I don't have to go on this. Of course, you all know what my interests are. So that's why that was brought up. But I thought sometimes you could just look at something and can we get in it or can we not get in it? And then you can make plans from there. So year X is a long ways away. I understand you're saying it's two different things, but I don't see anything else that talking about first plan.
That's
Can
in-
we even go into
That's
it?
in year one. So with that is a project we've been working on.
Okay, I just
Yeah.
didn't see it in there, so.
So it's a carryover. It's project 1.03. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, so that is the structural improvement. So like Jim was saying, we have an engineer as well as an architect working through that process to get building permits
Okay.
to make sure the building is structurally sound so we can get folks back using it. And then it's more about long-term, like you said, visioning and opportunity type stuff.
No, I think the year one plan is fine. So I was looking all through that, but yeah, this was a lot of information. I'm really impressed with you, Andrew, and all of these things that you're carrying on. I mean, I hope you could come and, manage my laundry room. See if that could ever happen. No, we're doing a lot of stuff and that's fabulous. I don't know that, I'm very impressed that we get so much done. Our parks always look amazing and we do have a limited budget and you seem to be using it well. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Couple questions as well. You were mentioning a number of factors that you use for prioritizing items. Is the strategic plan one of those factors?
Not specifically listed for the strategic plan, but sections of it, right? So part of our strategic plan is to make sure that's safe for our community and our workers and everything. And I can pull up the list, but it's elements of that is incorporated into that priority. So
Okay,
yep.
okay, just was right, because you didn't really mention that. I know we spent a lot of time poring over that. I want to know how that played out into the CIP.
Yeah, and to add to that, Director Chair Nichols, is just like our master plan, our CIP kind of looks at our master plan as well as our strategic plans, our guiding document. So it's really those three kind of help lean on each other for their purposes, right?
Sure.
So
Okay, thank you. And we've talked a lot about year one versus year 10 and moving things up and back and forth. But from budget to budget, is there a lot of shifting pieces where something might go backwards in time and something else goes forward in time? Because if you look at this, you forecast it over a 2-year time frame, and a lot happens in 2 years. Is that just a constant process, or some things just always stay year 8 and they never seem to get past year 8 or whatever it is? Is that the constant process that you're dealing with?
yeah, constant process. Like there's a couple brand new projects on here that weren't contemplated 2 years ago. But again, based on priority, like for example, like doing the work, right? So if say the board or Melissa says, Andrew, you can't spend that money, we got to spend it on something else. And I have to go through and cut year one projects. Now we're not talking about the backside. We're talking about what is going to be happening come July 1, right? And so we prioritize the projects specifically in each year based on, hey, does it need to stay or move back? So just like the Hillcrest and admin office, that was the first main project, because that's purposeful, right? That was, again, looking at the strategic plan, looking at our master plan. That's an important project for us to figure out, whatever it may be. The next project that had dedicated money to it was fixing the roof at TO, right? So it's, again, priorities kind of shift and change year to year. Like sometimes I'll walk down the hall and, hey, we got to spend it. Like we replaced a transformer at a building, right? So I walk down the hall to Melissa's office. Hey, we got some work going on. We need to take care of this, and we kind of shift that. And obviously, depending on funding and costs, we come to the board and make those adjustments, or from a year end standpoint. But when we're looking at this plan, constantly evolving, constantly shifting, Rochelle's folks might say, you know, and I'm going to pick on pickleball. Hey, pickleball, dead. We don't need to do it anymore. It's not interesting. No one's signing up for classes, all that stuff. And so if pickleball was there, we would move it back on the list. We might not take it off, or we might take it off, just as Director Huffer mentioned, artificial turf. It was something that a lot of people were trending to and all that, and it was on the list at some point. But then as far as we started studying it more, taking a look at it, and it fell back on the list, and then it went away on the list, right? So again, it's fluid. There's things that change year to year, and then also just from overall from the 10-year type of thing, from
Okay.
trends and priorities, safety, interest, all that stuff.
All right, thank you. I noticed in looking just at the dollar amount that year one is fairly heavily front loaded with a lot of projects and a lot of money, and year two, not so much. Is that because things need to get done right away, or are you anticipating that it's going to take you 2 years to get these projects done, and so we might as well get started on them and then use the 2 years to finish it up?
So both. Like, hey, interest to get them going, but then sometimes we know it's gonna take a little bit of time to get to them. Again, it's balancing. So if I put more projects in year one, that means I'll have less money in year two, right? Based on the projections. And then we also look at it from like a staffing standpoint. What projects can we execute? What can we get done? In past years, the park planner might have a different workload because of the level of projects and funding that we have, like grants. And then sometimes like the maintenance supervisor or the ground supervisors have more of a workload. It just depends year to year. So yeah, so both of your comments are accurate.
Okay. And then with the carryover projects at the top of the list there, are these, I mean, when you say carryover from how long ago?
So most of those would have been carried over. Some of them would have been multi-years, right? So depending on when the board initially, just like Conejo Community Park, for instance, I would have to kind of go back in time to specifically look to see when that was put on. But that was probably 2 budget cycles ago. So that was approved by the board 2 budget cycles ago. Like skate park, the last project 108. That one was moved up for year 1 and 2 last budget cycle. And so that one would have been from 23, 24. So it just depends.
Okay.
So depending on how long it takes for a project to get accomplished.
I would be curious to see what those numbers are when you get around to changing things a little bit, just to know how long are we carrying things on? You know, is this just, gosh, we were this close, but just couldn't get it done, or we've had a lot of bumps in the road and it's taking us multiple years. I'd like to know what it is that affects some of these projects and how long we're actually funding these for.
Sure. Yeah, and typically like Conejo Community, right? Multi-year process, right?
Yes, yes.
Borchard Skate Park, it was a planning project that turned to a construction project, right? And then obviously it turned into a little bit more planning review and things like that based on the city. So, but yeah, I can provide that to you.
Yeah, and some of those high profile ones we're more familiar with, but
Yep.
when we hear you giving presentations, you know, like every few months, pretty soon the months turn into years, and I forget, well, when was the first time I heard this? You
Sure.
know, when did we first get that started? All right, thank you. Let's see. On year 2, Conejo Creek South renovation irrigation system north area, is that phase 2 of what I see in year 1, which has the same thing listed, renovate irrigation system north area?
You caught my typo.
Oh, okay.
So in your spreadsheet, it should be north and south between the years. So I believe we are.
Okay.
Let me just double check. Yeah, so year 2 was south area,
Okay.
and then the other one was in year 3, correct?
It was year one.
Oh, my bad. I jumped years. But yeah, so
Okay.
it's north, then south. That was a typo. I didn't translate into the board report, but on the CIP, I believe it's accurate. Yep.
Okay. All right. And there's a question. I noticed you have 2 parking lot resurfaces for year one, and I know we had good luck a couple years ago in coordinating with the city. Is that a routine thing? Because I know they're always doing streets, where we can coordinate those types of activities in association with the city and try to capitalize on some
Sure.
efficiencies.
Yeah, and so we're talking to the city about that when there is opportunities, when it's a smaller kind of project, like those 2 projects are. Typically, we wouldn't do that. If you remember back in 2020, we did about $750,000. I think it was 11 parking lots we did.
Mhm.
And so we worked with them ahead of time because we were playing a little bit of catch up on it. So it was just the breakdown of the materials and stuff like that. But just similar, kind of like what we were doing with our playgrounds, we kind of worked ahead. We're working right on schedule with this. So typically, if it was a larger project, we probably would work with the city on it. But because of the efficiency of just scheduling it around the programming and the community use of the park and everything, we're going to be managing those projects.
Okay.
So
Okay. And then also in year two, referencing the Borchard Community Park light improvement, will that be moving to an LED? Is that with one of the Musco lighting systems?
correct, yeah. So that system's currently Musco, but then
Oh,
we
it
would
is,
be
okay.
we would be swapping. We haven't. It's now that it's up, we would probably start planning for it in year one, and then go for it in year 2, right? And so we might be just changing fixtures, or we might have to change the poles and the fixtures out.
Okay,
So,
that was gonna be
yeah.
my question, because having learned a lot more about lighting than I ever knew with the Rancho Potrero question facility. And I saw you had back in the future years, $3 million to do a district-wide. Just was looking at this Orchard one, I said, well, can you do it one park at a time or one field at a time?
Yeah.
But I was also wondering about the distribution of the lighting, and will all of these require changing light standards when you get to that process?
Yeah, and it really just depends on it case by case, right? And then
Okay.
we would assess it. And this actually, I was excited to see this one come up on the list because it's kind of be a little test run doing a renovation. Just because like Rancho Potrero, yeah, we're taking out old, putting in new, completely new poles, everything. Borchard's gonna be brand new. Teen Center was brand new. Rancho Conejo Pickleball, that was all brand new lighting. So really kind of using this as a test run experiment, if you will, and
Okay.
really kind of see what is the efficiencies on how we do that with Musco.
Okay,
So.
perfect. Okay, thank you. Let's see. Another thing I noticed, going back to the budget allocated, with the years 1 and 2, forget where I wrote it down. Oh, here it is. About $10.6 million, a little over $5 million per year if you average that per year. But as I look into the future years, many of these are nowhere near that amount. Is that just because these are the ones that you've identified for future years, and by the time we get there, these will be bigger lists in that $5 million or somewhere like that?
Yeah, in time, and I do think like having a project like Borchard, 4.5 million is right there, right?
Oh, yeah,
That's almost half of what you said with that
Yes,
$10 million
yes.
figure, and so it just depends,
Okay.
right? So it depends as we kind of work through, and then also we have carryover from Rancho Potrero, which that was a bigger project. If you remember, that was a couple $1 million, and then we also have carryover from some other projects too. So it's definitely a little bit different when you're looking in year one because it's acting differently with the funding that's there.
Sure.
So
The other thing that came to mind is, are you targeting, say, hey, we try to target $3 million on average per year for capital or something like that, or is it not even like that?
I never have had a target. I try to spend, I try to spend as much as we need to spend. Like,
Okay.
especially being a project manager over the years, if there's opportunity and Melissa has funding for us to do it and it's responsible, that was for Melissa. If it's responsible,
Okay.
then we
All right.
would be doing it. But just like skate park, like, hey, that was a conversation of, hey, using funds to be able to supplement that project to accomplish it.
Okay.
So.
All right, that makes sense. And then on year X, not that I'm looking forward to replacing buildings, but I just was curious, how do you, I mean, are you just using the term replace as a placeholder, or will some maybe need renovation, some repurposing? Is that like a definite, or just, no, we're gonna need to do something?
Yeah, I don't want to say we're planning for like worst case scenario because most likely it's going to be more money, right? Like, because again, this isn't $2025, but we're kind of taking the approach of how we address Conejo community. Hey, first we got to assess it. We got to take a look at it. Is there a need to remove the building and replace it? The goal would be if we have parts of a good building or a core portion of the good building, like our gymnasiums, or even like Dos Tientos, right? That's our newest community center, about 20 years old, right? And so it's the factor of maybe we augment the center, we add to it. So it's going to be a case by case assessment. So
Okay.
that's why it's assessment first, and then because that number might change, because just like Conejo community, we're working from a number, an estimate, and then we say, all right, now we know what the building is. It's this type of building type. However, we got to change the parking lot. We got to add utility service differently because different requirements from the 60s to our present day, that type of stuff.
Okay.
So
And then a kind of a follow-up question to that, tying back into the Crowley House and Old Meadows, where we have some facilities that have been used for multiple purposes over the years. When you look at this type of list of knowing how things need to be revisited, do you also consider maybe swapping activities? Say, hey, instead of doing those activities there, why don't we do it over here? Obviously, coordinate with recreation staff. Is that part of this discussion when you say, hey, rather than just rebuilding, maybe we just need to move it or repackage how we do things? Is that also part of the discussion?
yep, yeah, definitely. That's part of the discussion on a routine basis. If there's a different opportunity, like just like if they're moving people around the district for different programs, or a bigger like a unit or whatever works better, that would definitely be part of a conversation leading up to even the assessment. So.
Okay, all right. Let's see. I think that is all my questions. I did have one more. This goes, the Hillcrest Center and for the arts, and then also the administrative offices. Since those are actually co-located, it's like two different types of operations co-located. Should that be, did you consider maybe adding that as two line items? Because it's two different operations, or is it, hey, it's just a placeholder for now, it doesn't really matter because it's all so fluid, don't worry about it?
Yeah, exactly. I would say we're together now. Keep them together until we know more and what the situation is. Because if we needed to create a separate project and put separate funding to something, then we would at that time.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And just as a follow-up to Director Orozco's question about how would this impact it, since, allocated the funds that are available, that responsible, and nothing is going to change too much, hopefully. And then all of a sudden this one pops up as, okay, this is something we need to move on, and you have to start allocating. If none of these funds are going to be affected with these projects, you're saying that there are other fund opportunities where we can plug in, at least that's the initial concept, is that we'll tap in somewhere else to be able to move that forward.
Correct.
Okay. So this will basically be set for the 2 years regardless of what happens. All right, very good. Okay, I think that's all of my questions. So in the interim, was there any follow-up questions that anybody had or anything else needs to be clarified? Okay. All right, so this particular portion is just to provide input and direction. I think we've given you a lot of questions. Hopefully you kind of glean from us what the concerns or direction is. And then I also, the recommendation we have here. So we do have a recommendation from staff here. if anyone wants to make a motion on following staff direction.
I'll make, I'll make that motion.
Okay,
That we, one, provide direction to the staff on the recommended proposed 10-year capital improvement plan, and two, public hearings for the fiscal years 2025-26 and 2026-27 are scheduled for June 5th, 2025 and June 19th, 2025.
I'll second.
okay. I'm sorry?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. As I said, since this was a public hearing, we're going to close the public hearing since our Madam Clerk opened it for us. And so we do have a motion and a second on the floor. Any final questions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you, Director Mooney and all the staff, because I know this is a team effort, but thank you all for pulling that together. It's obviously it's a quite a mammoth project, but thank you so much. Okay, next is items for discussion. We have none. New items. We do have one. Madam Clerk, would you read that into the record for us, please?
Yes, it's facility rental fees and deposits and filming fees, adopting resolution 051525-A.
Thank you. I'm going to direct this to Director Callis.
Thank you, Chair Nichols, members of the board. So every year, as our strategic plan says, we look at our facility and rental fees and we do a deep dive. In the past, we've done it for fields, which you'll hear more about that. And this year, we really dove deep into facilities, so our buildings and our rooms, did some comparison, and really that's all I'm going to say because James here has done a fantastic, in my opinion, presentation, and I really just appreciate all his work in this because it is a lot of work. It's a lot of looking at numbers, looking at what other people are doing, and then trying to evaluate and then figure out where we should be, all while keeping us in a position where we are not competing or exceeding our neighbors and trying to keep things reasonable for those around us, but then also being responsible in the fees that we charge and the monies that we make from those fees also so that we can continue to help keep our buildings in good condition and stuff to that effect. So with that, James, thank you very much and take it away.
Excuse me, James, is your microphone on?
How about now?
Ah,
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
All right. So just to start with a little bit of background. So back in 2023, the board approved a 5-year plan that will transition Class 1 and Class 2, which are our sports organization user groups, from paying 25% and 50% of the base rate, respectively, to 50% and 75% by 2027 is when that 5-year plan will end. So this coming July, they will go up to 40% and 65%. So what that means is our Class 1 organizations, which are our nonprofit youth sports, they pay just 40% of what an in-district resident or business would pay to rent a space. And same thing for our Class 2, which is our youth club sports and adult nonprofit groups. They will be paying 65% this July. That same year, we increased all other fees except fields because that mostly impacted fields. We did a 5% increase on all other fees, and we also raised the application fee from $12 to $15. And then due to all of that, last year we tried to keep things kind of mellow and we did minimal changes to fees. We mostly just adjusted the pool rental fees to be more in line with how we structured our fees at all our other facilities. We added a change fee that's just $10, and then we adjusted staffing fees based on minimum wage increases. So tonight, as Rochelle mentioned, we're going to focus mostly on our indoor facilities, but we do need to touch on the entire fee schedule. So we'll also mention picnics, our sports fields and courts, pool rentals, and staffing and administrative fees as well. So getting started with our indoor facility rentals, this is kind of the current state of things in our district. So here we have a map of the district. And if a person were to call up here at Hillcrest Center and say, hey, I would like to rent a room for about 40 people. What accommodations do you have available for us? Well, we could tell them that over on that side of town at the Global Center, you can rent the 2 Sage rooms that'll fit your group there, and it's $42 per hour. Or if you go up the street to the Thousand Oaks Center, they'll fit you in the lounge for $26 an hour. Or if you happen to live on the Newbury Park side of town, we'll put you at Orchard Center in their lounge for $43 an hour. Or if you're willing to drive up that hill, you'll get a discount. It's $28 an hour at Dos Vientos for the same size room for the same group of people. So we thought that was kind of an odd way of setting things up, especially since these are all the same types of rooms with the same types of amenities. And so we wanted to deep dive into that this year and kind of look at the numbers. So with that, if you were to try to chart a relationship between the capacity of a room, so going across the bottom there, we have the number of people that a room would fit from 0 to 350. Based on the price that you would charge for the room, you might expect to see something kind of like a straight line, where as the rooms get bigger, there's more people, bigger impact on the facility, the price is going to go up accordingly. If you were to plot our prices currently and then attempt to draw a straight line through them, this is what we're looking at, which is not too far off the base here, but there are some interesting things happening, particularly at the very bottom. It's kind of all jumbled together, and then there's an interesting relationship at the 150 mark, and then it kind of just tapers off and doesn't continue to grow as the rooms grow. Fortunately, we're not alone in this type of scenario. So in looking at our neighbors in Simi Valley and Pleasant Valley, their prices are kind of differing from place to place and room to room as well. I can't really speak to why theirs are the way theirs are. They may have very justifiable reasons that the amenities from one place to another are totally different, and that's why they are the way they are. But as I said, we don't really have a good reason for why it's this way. So what we're proposing this year is to kind of streamline things, which would be this blue line going through here, just trying to bring things more consistent so that no matter where you live in the district, there's something nearby available to you, and it's going to be a consistent experience for all our residents. And then as you'll see, just looking towards the future, if we are going to kind of explore where there is potential room to increase prices, we're probably going to look at bringing that upper end higher. That's not what we're proposing this year, though. That's just something to keep in mind, is that the going rate at our neighbors for a room of about 200 people is around $100 or even over $100. So that's just kind of what we're looking at for possibly looking at in future years. So our proposal this year is to kind of consolidate our fees, and we're presenting a 6-fee structure based on the capacity of our rooms. So we have one size up to 25 people can fit, up to 50, 100, 150, 200, and 300. And then we have just terminology for these rooms to make it simple for everyone, whether it's a small or a large activity room, the main hall at one of our centers, a multi-purpose room, and then we actually have 2 different size gyms. Some of them are full-size gyms, and some of them are 3/4 size. And for each of these sizes, we have a consistent set rate that would be the same at all facilities. In addition to the fees that we charge for the hourly rental of these rooms, we have deposits, which are also kind of an interesting situation currently. So for a small room, you currently need to pay a deposit for the room itself and then pay a separate floor cleaning deposit. Same thing for a large room, main hall, and gymnasium. So once you get to the gymnasium, you're actually paying 2 deposits that equal $600. What we found is, in looking at the history of all of our rentals, we only ever keep or claim a deposit less than 6% of the time. So most often, this is just money coming into us that we're giving right back to them. And we're basically just saying, hey, to rent this space, you need to have $600 up front that we're just going to hand right back to you. So that kind of can serve as a barrier to some people. And we want to make sure that our rooms are accessible and usable to everyone in our district. So what we're recommending we do is first consolidate the fees. So there's just one. If it happens to be damage to the floor, we have the deposit to make the repairs or the cleaning. And if it happens to be to any other part of the building, same thing. So what we're proposing is grouping them together and then also lowering the end ones on the upper end there. So instead of $600 for the gym, just $400. It still covers the floor cleaning. It still covers anything else that we could foresee happening in there. But it should be easier for people to be able to have that money up front, and then hopefully they get it back. We do have a few interesting cases where the capacity of the room isn't necessarily set because we have dividable rooms at 4 of our centers. So we're going to look at the Global Center just as an example. They have the loop-in rooms, which can be divided up to 4. The smallest portion would be 25 people, and if you did all 4 of the rooms together, you could fit up to 100. And all we're doing with that situation is taking the lowest and the highest price points, and then taking the midpoints for if they get 2 rooms or 3 of the rooms. And the only other exception to that is rooms that we don't actually have a capacity set for. So that would be things like our kitchens, the lounges and lobbies, where it's just an extra space for people to kind of set up for their event. And those are all just going to be a flat $26 per hour. Currently, they're all about 24 or 25. So we just kind of rounded that off and kept them consistent. And just moving on really quick to our other rental fees. So we're not recommending any changes tonight to the application or change fee. We're not recommending any changes to the recreation staffing fees. And we're not recommending changes for the picnic area rental fees. So again, it's primarily just the indoor we're looking at doing any adjustments to. We are just adding a fee for the 3 futsal courts at Los Cerritos Middle School, and we're just keeping that the same as our current fee for soccer fields. And then at the pool, we're just doing a 5% increase for the rental there. So that will bring the full pool at CLU from 90 to 94, and the per lane going from 1120 to 1180. Excuse me. And then for parks and planning, they have asked us to recommend an increase for park rangers for the filming process from 74 to 85. And there's actually a typo in your board packet where we omitted the increase for groundskeepers from 60 to 70. And there's no changes recommended for filming fees. And with that, we're available for questions.
Thank you very much. That was very interesting. I have a few questions, but I'm going to start with Director Cusworth on my right. Do you have any questions?
No, I thought that that was very well explained and I enjoyed your PowerPoint. And when I was looking at this earlier, I think our fees are really quite reasonable.
Yeah.
So it seems like that's a very nice ability for our community. Do we have a lot of people in our community that are renting rooms or half rooms? Is this common? Are we filling up with these rooms or?
Yeah, our rooms are quite busy. It kind of does vary a little bit center to center, but like Borchard Center, for example, they have rentals, I think, on a weekly basis almost. It really depends, like the time of the year, it can vary as well, but they definitely have a lot of rentals going on at all of our centers.
Now, I was wondering if the people are doing like something like it's a nonprofit. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm a member of a retired teachers group and they go to the Global Center and they make things for hospitals and things. So are they actually renting that room at the Global Center?
The Global Center has certain programs through CSVP that they do not rent rooms. That's put on and hosted by CSVP. But if it wasn't one of our programs, the Global Center for Senior Programs could rent something like that for the group, or they could just say, we're open and you can come in and do that. But most of those programs, like the Busy Bees and stuff like that, they're part of CSVP.
And so would like the genealogy group, I went to a lecture there the other day, would they have rented that room?
I don't know off the top
You
of
don't
my
know?
head.
Okay.
Yeah. Some,
right.
there, some are rentals, some are not, but at the other facilities, pretty much anything that would be in a room that would not be our program would be a rental.
Would that be the same for the teen center?
The teen center does a little bit more because of, both of those because of the relationship with the city. We do a little more stuff, but yeah, like if the school district, well, school district's not a good example. Yeah, if a group of kids wanted to come in or a parent wanted to have a birthday party or something for their kid, they would rent it.
Okay.
So
but if
unless
it-
we're initiating it and we're partnering with them, it
Okay.
would be rented. So we have churches at both of those facilities.
And they would be renting the
They
facility?
pay. Mhm.
Okay.
As a nonprofit. So and we didn't get into it, so hopefully you guys all remember, we have several different classifications. So there's the 100%, and then there's nonprofits that pay 75%, and out of district that pay 150% of what the going rate is. And then in sports, there's the class 1 and 2 that James was talking
Yeah,
about.
you had that all in the packet though, didn't you? So James, what were you? Were you just doing the base rate or what
Yeah.
was?
Yeah, all the numbers in the presentation were on the base rate for each of
Okay.
the rooms.
All right.
So you'll see that in your packet, and then it adjusts accordingly based on what type of user group.
Well, I thank you for all of your work. That was very thorough.
Thank you.
And I feel like I need to rent something. Like I haven't been renting something that I could be renting. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Director Roscoe.
Yeah, I don't have any questions other than just to say thank you so much for the beautiful presentation. You made it very easy and digestible, and appreciate the work.
Thank you.
Director Buss.
Yeah, similar. And I too was thinking, what could I rent one of these rooms for? I was like, do I want to throw a party in one of our community rooms though? Probably not with my friends.
There's that deposit.
Right? Yeah, I would need a bigger cleaning deposit probably. But yeah, no, that was great. And that was so interesting that when you did the original graph, just to see the way the pricing is, it's
Yeah.
so funny when you put that all together. But yeah, thank you so much for taking the time and looking over the neighboring associations or districts. I mean, thank you.
Thank you.
Director Huffer.
Yeah, so the district's been around for what, 60-some years, and we're just now figuring out, hey, we should charge the same for the same kinds of facilities regardless of where they are in the community. So great job on doing that. That's wonderful to see. I noticed you said you are removing fees for ball field lining and dragging, use of bases, and chalking soccer fields. That means if you do the lining and stuff, that you would charge for that?
Yeah, we currently don't actually offer, like, our staff never do those services and haven't for many years. And we spoke with the sports staff and with the grounds as well. And the decision was if we ever were asked to do that, we would just charge them for the staff time that it would take to do that. So those fees actually just have never really been ones that we charge anyone.
Oh,
So-
okay, because I was gonna suggest that maybe we get a competitive quote from you guys, because we pay an outside firm to line all of the soccer fields, but just, you might change that because they haven't chalked soccer fields in about 20 years. They use paint now, but other than that,
Yeah.
that's great, and great job. I really like everything you put into this, so thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the analysis. Appreciate that. Kind of diving into these things, especially when you kind of start scratching your head. Well, why is this? You know, go back in time and no one has an answer for you, so you have to do it yourself. I just was wondering, do they also ask for a room with a view?
We do have some that have nice views.
Okay, all right. So you could charge a premium for those, I guess.
We could look into that, yeah.
Okay, all right. Uh, Curious on what the demand is, you know, is there a demand for all the rooms, or, you know, it's mostly small rooms, you know, occasionally for the large room? Where is the demand? Is it across the board, or is it not inconsistent?
It's pretty inconsistent. Again, it's basically built around when we don't have our own programs or open gym or anything running, our supervisors do their best to, offer it to anyone that inquires about something. They let them know when it's available and try to book as much as they can. Certainly the smaller rooms, because they're much more affordable, do get booked more than our gyms would per se. But it's kind of across the board.
Okay. And I can't help it, but I had to put my fire marshal hat on for a second. I just, looking up at the signs here that has an occupancy load of the maximum. And I'm just wondering, with these rooms that we have, if someone says, hey, I want a room for 40, he says, well, we can fit 40, but it's you're not really supposed to have 40. I just want to make sure that we are complying with whatever the occupancy maximum is and that we're not exceeding that.
It's actually kind of a funny story because that's what started this whole thing. We had a question about using one of our rooms, and they wanted to have a much larger group than we typically would have. So we had a couple of our supervisors look into literally measuring the rooms, like the gyms themselves, and then going online and looking up the fire code and seeing there's different codes for if they're seated at tables with chairs versus if it's standing room only versus auditorium seating. Went through all that and found that what we had set as our capacities was way within the range for that, way lower than those maximums. And primarily because we want to control our facilities and make sure it's safe. And also it's some of our facilities, we can't necessarily have as many chairs as the room fire code would allow. So it's really just like our resources, this is what we're able to accommodate, and the room itself is never really an issue.
Perfect. Okay, I'm happy to hear that because I was actually thinking about the standing versus the chairs versus the
Yeah.
table. So, like you said, once you're in it, you can't forget it. I'm sorry.
Yep.
But anyhow, glad to hear it. So, yeah, thank you. I think it's a great option, and I will say I think it'd make it more user friendly as well for those that just want to do that. So, thank you very much. Okay, if there's no other questions, the staff does have a recommendation here. If anyone cares to make a motion,
I'll make a motion that we adopt the recommendation. Do I have to say all that? The Board of Directors adopts the resolution 051525-A, setting the facility rental fees and deposits and filming fees for the Conejo Recreation Park District effective July 1st, 2025.
To be read in title.
To be read in title only, and all future readings be waived. Oh, did it right this time, Chuck. Good job.
thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
All right. All right, we have a motion and a second. Would you please read the title for us only?
Resolution number 051525-A, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Conejo Recreation and Park District adopting a fee schedule per district ordinance.
Thank you very much. Everybody in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you very much, and thank you again for the presentation. We'll have to get you up here more often. You're doing a good job. Okay, next that takes us to reports and announcements. We do have a few of those in our packet. Was there any questions of staff on any of those items in the packet? Okay, seeing none, we'll.
I have my hand
Oh,
up.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. I was waving back and forth. I didn't notice. Please go ahead.
I want to comment that on page 65, that's a very nice picture of Director Nichols
Oh.
and Mayor Newman. So they both look very official and they look like they're working together.
It's
for
looked
the
like we
common
planned that.
good of our community.
Thank you. Okay, anything else? Is that it? All right. Continue on item 11, department reports. We'll start with our Parks Division report, please.
No report, but available for question.
We heard it all already, huh? Okay. All right, thank you. All right, next, our Recreation Division report.
I, of course, have something to say.
Okay.
Anyhow, so just a couple things going on that aren't in the highlights. Saturday is the Disability Fair at Conejo Creek North from 11 to 3 that is being hosted by TO Police Foundation and CRPD. And I actually have just heard breaking news that the Kiwanis are providing dessert. And then Special Olympics, it's just one of those things I don't know how much you guys know about, but we are extremely involved in Special Olympics, and we have a group of approximately 20 young adults going to Santa Barbara for the basketball tournament. So 2 full teams. Cowboy Cook-Off is Saturday, but it is sold out, so if you don't have tickets, don't go online. Teen Center's having a black light glow dance party on Saturday from 7 to 9. So if you want to see some teens hanging out in the dark, you're welcome to stop by and check out the glow party. Also, just so you know, and I think I've mentioned it before, but we are doing an update on our website. It's actually a complete refresh and changing companies, revamp to meet ADA requirements, and we should hopefully have it launched September-ish. So that is in the works and going well. With that, I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Okay, that takes us to our Management Services Division report.
Thank you, Chair and board members. So I do have a few things. We are in the middle of our interim audit, so we've had auditors with us for Monday through Wednesday, and they finished early, so they didn't have to come today or tomorrow. So I think it's good when they finish early, right? We're also starting our meetings with the union next week, so hopefully that will progress quickly because the next two meetings are all budgets all day. And we're also going to have the final MRCA budget when we have our final budget. So that's going to be a double budget time at the end of June, just a heads up on that. And we have our new HR analyst starting on Monday. So yeah, we're very excited for that. And his name's John Howe, not to be confused with Shelley Howell. They are different. But yeah, so that's what's going on in my world, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Yes, Director Huffer.
Yeah, just a quick question since Rochelle mentioned websites. I know the city some time ago had to change over everything to .gov, and I know we had looked at it or talked about it various times, but are we going to have to eventually change to .gov ourselves? Because I was told by the city folks that for whatever reason, you can't use acronyms with .gov.
So there's a lot with that. The law that made cities go to that did not affect special districts. There was a proposed law for special districts to be forced to do that, and that is in the suspense file right now. So it's not, we're not anticipated that we have to do it. However, we secured the domain name to do it. And when we do a revamp that Rochelle can give more information on is probably when we would do that transition. And I don't know if you have a date in mind.
Yeah, when the website goes live, we're going to make that. Mark's working on making that happen also. And so our new URL, is that what it's called, is going to be coneorecparks.gov. Yes, we could not do CRPD because they would not do it. So, and I was a stickler and wanted rec in there, so it made it a little longer. So, but yeah, coneorecparks.gov.
So that's probably going to be even harder an adjustment than putting a little bunny rabbit on our logos. So
Yes. So we're gonna have to do a little bit of rebranding. Business cards will change. So it'll be a process. All the things will work, but they'll go to, and the website will be .gov. But if they look up CRPD, it'll still shoot them there. So the website people are doing that, so it'll all connect.
it all goes seamlessly.
No, but yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. General Manager's report, please.
Sure, real quick. In my hand, thanks to Melissa Smith, while we were in closed session, she handed me the city's staff report for their next Tuesday night meeting. And one of the recommendations is authorize city manager to explore potential terms of disposition for 401, 403 Hillcrest Drive property with Conejo Park District. So that's really exciting news. And so we're going to have a conversation. And so that whole budget line item under what is it, 1.09 or from year one is now sort of maybe going to come into more clarity over some time potentially. So so that's a great opportunity. So if you can, Tuesday night, city council, it's a city council workshop, and might be interesting to see what they're doing with the downtown plan. And I know that them working with us here, they'd love to know what we think and have our agency support for the efforts they're going through. So that's going on. The Conejo Valley Days Parade is, I think, Sunday the 18th. Sunday the 18th. We're doing the same thing. We have a pickup truck pulling a hay wagon with the drummers in it. I apologize. I didn't really extend the invite again to the board only because I heard it was pretty loud for sitting in there with the drummers for that long. If you, those of you that did it, if you do want to sit with them in the hay wagon, just let me know, because I think we can squeeze a few extras, but it's really popular, and the ladies that are in the drum circle, they like really want to do it. So I think we can probably squeeze people in if you want to ride in the CRPD hay wagon, but you'll be riding with the drummers, the ladies that do the drum circle. And then next week will be pre-board meeting, but also CARPD conference. So I know I'll be gone, and I think 3 of the board members will next week for that as well. And with that, I'm available for questions.
Questions for the general manager? Okay, thank you for the report. All right, that takes us to director's reports. I think I'm ready to start back on the right-hand side again, right? We'll go with Director Tessworth.
So I've had a very busy month this month. I don't know how it's been for all of you, but so I did go to a chamber breakfast, which I enjoyed. They put me with all of the school board members. I've been trying to go because a lot of other electeds go to some of the chamber meetings, so that was interesting. And then I was at a Stagecoach speaker event, of course, and it was all about the wildlife bridge. We had Rory Skay was there and Lauren Gill. And of course, we were at the Gratitude Circle. I was at the State of the Schools. I enjoyed that. I couldn't make it to the Thrive ribbon cutting, the Thrive Navigation Center ribbon cutting. But they did have an open house. So I went to the open house and got a personal tour through everything, and that was very, very enjoyable. But one thing I really want to talk about is I took my granddaughter to the Secret Garden. And in here in the Secret Garden, it says lighting and sound designer Ian Kelly. So he doesn't just sit here behind his computer.
Oh, I'm Nick.
You're Nick. I thought you were Ian.
Nope, Ian is not here.
Okay.
Ian's
Ian's usually there.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna have to look at you guys
hold on,
closer.
this is-
It's my biggest thing, trying to remember all of you staff members. Well, Ian Kelly was the designer and he usually sits there. So I was very impressed because it was very good lighting. So you can tell Ian, if you see him, that I was impressed with his lighting at the Secret Garden. And I also saw Marissa's niece was in the show. But here's what I really want to say about it. And of course, I've been really in love with the with the young artists because I think it's a great program. But I took my granddaughter and we walked in and she was looking at all the pictures of the kids that were in it. And she goes to Sequoia and she goes, oh, I know this person and this person. She goes, oh, this person's at Los Robles. She's in the Los Robles Children's Choir. Oh, that person's there with me. And so then we went in and sat down, and then one of her friends, dad was there with his other daughter, and he came over and started talking to us. And the director of it is my third daughter's best friend. They met in a theater production. So she came over and talked to us. And so we were talking to these people, and my granddaughter said, oh, wow, it's such a small town. And that really struck with me that you can go places here that we are providing and you know people. Afterwards, she went and talked to some of her friends after the production. You meet people, and it's just important to have programs like this. This is what builds the community in our city. It's not just a big, large city where people don't know each other. The parks and our programs make us a small town. We make connections, we're building community, and it's very important. And to have something like the Arts Council that we have here is something that I would hate to see disappear. Something that we couldn't facilitate the way we have it. It's been going for how many years? Like 50 years or more? And my daughter met Laura, who was the director when they were teenagers, and now she's directing shows here. So, and it was a really great show. Have you seen it? Did you see it, Marissa?
I didn't get to yet.
You didn't get to see it? It was a really great show. And so, a great opportunity because they had like the really good singers, the older teenagers, But then they had an opportunity for the younger kids to be in it too. And it gives them something to strive for that you're not going to always be able to get. And to be in it is reasonably priced. Where up in Seattle and even in Sacramento, to be in a children's show costs over $1,000. So that's really out of the price range of so many families. So I just kind of wanted to say how I am impressed with our Arts Council and how important it is that we have facilities like this in our community to spread the arts.
Thank you. Director Orozco.
Thank you, Chair. I was with all of you at the Gratitude Circle ceremony that we had. That was really lovely. I unfortunately was not able to go to the State of the Schools. I registered but was sick that day, so I was bummed to have missed it. So I'm glad that you went. Oh, they did? Okay. Okay. I was there in spirit. But I did get a chance to go to the Thrive Grove Navigation Center, and that was so wonderful to participate in and be there alongside the city of Thousand Oaks as they marked this very commemorable moment for the community, and this wonderful new service that we'll be able to provide our unhoused individuals. And that was it. That's been my month so far.
Very good. Thank you. Director Buss.
So I was at the chili cook-off, as you all know, of course, and I did have Mondo there, and they provided a ton of volunteers, and that was one of the local nonprofits that I met at the Conejo Youth and Family Coalition meeting, and so I think it was really awesome to have that group of kids there and provide them, you know, a sense of community and being involved. They really loved working the car show and watching all the cool cars come in. Yeah. Some of them got to do that and some of them had to do supplies. And then Safe Passages did all of both of our chili cup booths. So I think that was awesome. Boy Scouts came in and cleaned everything up for us and did all our trash, which is huge. So it's just fun to have, and then we have 4 different nonprofits at the beer booth. Play Conejo was at one of them with Jim, and then we had Senior Concerns and Mana. So I just think it's fun to have kind of like what Conejo Valley Days was when I was a kid, where all the nonprofits came together and put on an event for the community. So I just thought that was really fun to have that. And then I was at the Gratitude Circle. I would appreciate if we could schedule that not for the day after the chili cook-off, maybe next year. I don't know who's in charge of that, but I'm just gonna put that in the notes, maybe. Okay, that'd be great. Gives me a little PTSD being back that soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Huffer.
Thank you. I apologize for missing the chili cook-off. I was enjoying the gloom and drizzle down at Legoland that weekend, so couldn't make it, but glad you had a successful event. Could have used that weather the following weekend when, although it was not a Park District event, it was at a Park District facility where it was 95 degrees on the soccer fields, and that was just not a whole lot of fun. Like everyone else, I was at the Gratitude Circle, the State of the Schools event on the 8th, and Director Nichols and I were at the Costco board meeting last night, and the only highlight I can remember from there, we did add 7+ acres to the open space from property that the city had acquired along the way. So we have a little more open space than we did a week ago. So that's my report.
Very good. Thank you. On the May 4th, I attended the 96th birthday recognition of the senior soccer player of the 60 years and older soccer league. And it was just a fabulous event. I guess they've been playing together since 1976, and you have to be 60 and older. And they said, Jim, whenever you're ready, you know, since you were kicked out of the other group, that you're welcome to join them. But it was a wonderful event, and it reminded me somewhat of the pickleball group, because they do go to play, but they said what they really enjoy most is their third half, where they just sit around and talk and solve the world's problems. And I would say there's no better group to do it, because there's over 40 nationalities represented in this group. You know, Jamaica, Palestine, Israel, Egypt, Scotland, El Salvador, Guatemala, Argentina, I mean, just from all over the globe. And they are just so appreciative of being able to play at the North Ranch Playfields. And there's a little glitch in their scheduling, and Rochelle and her team was able to resolve that for them. But they just, what a great group of people, and it's a family event, you know, all the families come out there. It's, you know, men are out there playing, but the all families are out there. It just was a great afternoon. It was perfect soccer weather. It was about, you know, 58 degrees or something like that, but it was a lot of fun. Glad I went there and participated in that just to see what that was all about. I did attend the Gratitude Circle event, and then on the 6th of May, met with some city staff and Costco staff to discuss some wildfire prevention issues regarding open space and our neighbors, and trying to kind of coordinate how we better can reach out to the community to encourage them to do what needs to be done in light of all the issues with insurance and everything that's going along with that. And then on the 9th, the California Rec and Park District Association, we had a financial committee meeting and an executive committee meeting, then attended the Costco board meeting. And then the one meeting that I did not attend, which was on the 7th, was the California legislator, the Senate committee hearing. It was going to be for Senator Stern's issue on item 499, which was to kind of recognize that park facilities are important for emergency response professionals, as well as for even rooms like this for evacuation centers. And we had worked, a week or two on that, and just pouring over. And then like the day before, we're hearing, we're going to pull the bill. And, you know, the opposition is too great, and Senator Stern isn't even going to be there. And just kind of, it's all falling apart. So they said, okay, cancel the flight, don't come on up. And 2 hours later, okay, it's back on. But we're still not sure if Senator Stern is going to be there. I think we've worked out the details. I mean, I thought with what I'd learned over the last couple of years, what the legislative process was about, and then within a 2-week span, I just thought, okay, this is really the way the sausage is made. I mean, just, oh my gosh, what a whirlwind. So I didn't get up there, but the bill did pass through the Senate committee. We did have our lobbyists there and another person to represent it. So now it goes to the full Senate, then it goes to the, I forget which group it is, the House, another committee, another House. But it was very, very educational. I wouldn't say stressful. It was more entertaining than anything else. But just to see how, and Jim and several of the other members of the group were just pouring in information, because our lobbyists, I mean, they're good at being lobbyists, but they don't know about Parks and Rec, you know, so we're just pouring information. So very interesting process. Thoroughly enjoyed the entertainment value of it, but just trying to schedule it, clearing a spot in the schedule for 2 days and an overnight, then not doing it. And it's okay, I can't keep doing this. So anyhow, that was the, I would say highlight, but kind of the focal point of the month. All right.
So now that it's going to the full Senate, will you get an opportunity to take advantage of all your preparation?
My understanding is that it would just be Senator Stern at that point. And because this was it had to get out of the committee before it could get to the Senate floor. Once it gets to the Senate floor, then it's just the senators or whoever the sponsor happens to be of that. So, yeah. But all of the homework we did was key to making it happen. So it wasn't for naught. I just didn't happen to be the one presenting it.
So I have one other comment
Yes.
that I forgot, just really briefly. On the first Tuesday in June is our next VCSDA meeting, and we'll be meeting at the Port of Hueneme and having a tour. And it's very difficult to get into the Port of Hueneme. So this is an opportunity to actually see that, and it's the largest port between Los Angeles and San Francisco. So it's a pretty big deal here in Ventura County.
Mhm.
So it might be something that you want to put on your calendar and try to go to.
Very good. Thank you for that reminder. Yes, I remember that. Okay, requests for status reports and items for subsequent agendas. Anything for that? Okay. Items from the public. I have no cards. I see nobody in the audience. Do we have anybody online? Nope, we're all clear. We have it listed here for executive closed session, but I think that's been.
No need.
Okay, so we can have no closed session. So that brings us to adjournment. So I'm adjourning this meeting. Thank you.